Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
3-0. Swings, hits a high drive, left center field deep. This ball heading back toward the bullpen. It is gone! A two-run home run. Shohei Ohtani. And the show begins here in Milwaukee. 4-0 Dodgers. Ohtani with his 36th home run.
The 1-2 to Peterson. He checks and takes low. It gets away. Newman racing home. He dives home safely. 5-4 D-backs.
2-1 hit high in the air to right field. Renfroe looking at it. Let it go. Let it soar. Let it fly. And it's gone. A 3-run home run for Willie Castro.
Swinging a line shot. Deep right. Gone. Brooks Baldwin, a 3-run homer. And it's 11-2.
And a line drive left center field toward the gap. And it gets down for a hit. The Red Sox walk it off. Bob Left-Snyder with a bullet up the gap in left center. Palattella scores the winning run. And the Red Sox have a 5-4 walk-off victory here in the 10th inning.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I'm Ravi. Lulla. DB will be joining me here in a little bit. Again, he's got practice this week for Westside. He'll catch up with me at the end of the 7 o'clock hour here. So it's
I'll see you guys in practice.
Me and Shane again this morning for the first little bit. How you doing this morning, Shane?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
It's not too bad out this morning. Got a nice little fall crisp in the air as we get closer and closer to football season. We've got a good show setting up for you today.
I'm just doing like the old man walk.
We've got Sam McKewon rescheduled from yesterday on at 8 o'clock this morning from the Omaha World-Herald. At 8:45, we'll talk to Michael Coyer. He is from the Jet Foundation. They give away the Jet Award every year, and they're going to have a kickoff event here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. So we're going to talk to Michael Coyer about that coming up at 8:45. At 9:30, we're going to talk to Nicole Sweigard of the Nebraska Alumni Association. They've got a really cool trip coming up for Husker fans to go out to USC for their road game out at in LA for what is now a conference game against the Trojans. So we'll talk to Nicole at 9:30 about the Nebraska Alumni Association's trip out to USC. And then at 9:45, we'll wrap up the show with Henry Palattella. He covers Major League Baseball for Forbes as we kind of get down into this stretch run here, about the last 6 weeks of the regular season for Major League Baseball. There's quite a bit left to be decided. I still don't think there's anything left to be decided for my Red Sox. I don't care how many times Damon says it. That's not a good baseball team, and they're not going to make the playoffs. It's not me being a pessimist. That's me being a realist. And
Okay.
so we'll talk to Henry later on in the show about Major League Baseball. Probably
Major League Baseball.
Probably only try and ask one Red Sox question, but try and keep it to a minimum there. But we will get to Henry at the end of the show. I did want to start off with some college football stuff here because, as we get closer and closer to the start of the season, if my math is correct, we're just 11 days away from week 0 matchup, Florida State and Georgia Tech in Dublin. That's a week and a half, guys. We're almost there. We almost made it. We are almost to college football. But the speaking of Florida State, there was a story in ESPN yesterday about a running back at Florida State, Rodney Hill, who claims that he was basically forced to transfer because of the poor actions of his agent. And so this is why I thought it was interesting. DB and I talk a lot about the changing landscape and unintended consequences of all these things that we're getting to. And we'll talk about that in a big picture sense later on when DB gets here, because he asked me a question a few weeks ago that is now becoming more and more relevant with the idea of these non-revenue sports. But we'll get to that when DB gets here later. But former Florida State running back Rodney Hill claims that his parents hired an agent without really his approval, and this agent was shopping him to other schools before he had even entered the transfer portal. Hill claims he didn't even want to enter the transfer portal. This agent was just out there shopping him at the behest of his parents, trying to get him some money to transfer to a different school. And basically, word of this got back to Florida State and to Mike Norvell, and they're like, yeah, we don't do that here. You got to go. The problem for Rodney Hill was the timing of it. There was not a ton of time left with the transfer portal to be open. And so he didn't have a lot of options on where to end up. He first committed to Florida A&M because it's right there in Tallahassee. And then he found a home eventually at Arkansas. But the reason I bring this up is, Hill is fine. He did some return work. He had 77 carries for 334 yards. He was a good rotational back for Florida State, and he'll likely be that at Arkansas as well. But he's not a guy that you can go into you're not going to go into the transfer portal and expect him to be a feature back necessarily. Not to say that he can't become that at some point, but he found himself in this situation that I think a lot of kids either currently find themselves in, or as this continues down the NIL path, that are going to find themselves in these situations. And, it reminds me of a lot of experiences I had recruiting kids from high school to come play NAIA basketball, or trying to recruit kids from high school to come play NAIA basketball. And there's some of these situations, and it's not all of them by any means. There's some really great supportive parents out there. But in a lot of these situations, you end up with parents that, I don't even know if living vicariously through their children is the right way to put it, but they have unrealistic ideas of who their child is. And I feel like the higher you get in the kind of college athletic system, the more delusional sometimes people become. But it can be pretty bad at the lower levels as well. One of my biggest challenges recruiting kids at the NAIA level was not only convincing them, but also convincing their parents that the fact that I was at their door or I was on the phone with them likely meant that person was not going to end up in the NBA. And not just that they weren't going to end up in the NBA, they weren't going to end up in the G League. Like, that wasn't in their future. Now, I would be totally honest. We had a handful of kids go and play overseas and make money playing professional basketball. That's a real thing that happens from the NAIA level. What does not generally happen, especially now, you have the one-off stories of your, Dennis Rodman, I think that was a D2, or your Scottie Pippins, who that was an NAIA school when he was there. But that doesn't generally happen anymore, especially with the transfer portal. If you start there, you certainly don't finish there if you're that level of player. But one of the most challenging things that I had to deal with was the fact that these people had expectations of their son or their brother or their nephew or whoever he was to his family, that he was going to make it to the NBA and change their family's futures, and just this totally unrealistic view. Because let's be honest, even if I was coaching Division I and recruiting them to Division I, the chances of that actually happening are still remarkably low. But we're talking about NAI school where you're talking partial scholarships and, your road trips are in vans and you have pregame meals at Jimmy John's. Like, we're not talking about, it's incredibly competitive and way better than people realize, but we're not talking about guys that are going to the NBA here. And we're not even close to talking about guys that are going to the NBA here. And so you're constantly fighting against this idea because, most of the guys that we recruited had been good at basketball their entire lives and had often been the best player on their team their entire lives. But being the best player on your team in, AAU or high school or middle school or whatever guarantees you absolutely nothing when you get to the next level. I mean, you're talking about guys that are 5'11" guards. Go make me a list of all the 5'11" guards in the NBA. It's pretty short. Go make me a list of all the 5'11" guards in the NBA that have existed in the last 40 years and had more than a cup of coffee in the NBA. You're still talking about an incredibly short list, no pun intended. And you end up with these hyper unrealistic expectations. I'm sure DB can vouch for this with kids that he coaches in high school too. Parents have these kind of hyper unrealistic expectations of who their kid is and what them being good at that age means for their future. And so you're fighting against something, and it's a lot of times it's not even the kid themselves, but you're fighting against basically the parents or the family or whoever's surrounding this kid, that a lot of times the kid doesn't even believe what the family believes about their future. A lot of times these kids are just trying to play ball, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whatever it is. A lot of times they just want to go to college and play basketball or go to college and play football. And the reason I bring all that up is, in this situation where with Rodney Hill from Florida State and now at Arkansas, you end up with this kid whose future was put in major jeopardy because his parents had this unrealistic idea of who he was. Like, should he have an NIL agent? Sure, why not? Like, I don't have a problem with that. But the agent that his parents hired probably made them promises about, oh, I can go out. Your kid's way better than this. I can go out and get you X, Y, and Z if you let me shop him around to some schools and whatever, right? Most guys aren't that guy, even at a really high level. And especially at running back, where that's not a premium position in the sense of there's a huge lack of these guys. If you're talking about linemen in the transfer portal, yeah, maybe you're getting away with something like this. If you're talking about quarterbacks, although there are a lot of quarterbacks in the transfer portal, if you're talking about quarterbacks or pass rushers, guys like that, maybe you can get away with something like this. But Rodney Hill was a third string running back at Florida State, and he's a nice player, but this isn't the type of guy that people are getting in bidding wars over. And, I've heard Mike Sauter talk about this quite a bit. DB's talked about it. But the amount of garbage that happens because parents or people around a kid don't understand or they don't trust the coaches or the experts or whoever is around them. Like if you're a senior and you haven't heard from a Division I school yet, like that's probably not happening for you. Now there's outliers and examples and stuff like that, and I would never tell anybody to give up on their dream of what they're trying to accomplish. But at some point you have to calibrate your expectations. If you're going into your senior year and you've never even spoke to a Division I coach before, I'm not even talking about offers. I'm just saying you've not had contact with a Division I coach before. That's probably not in your future. Maybe it is. Maybe you end up like a James Williams and you go JUCO and you end up, maybe. It's possible. But you do have to be willing to go the JUCO route and put the work in and do that in order, like if you think that's your future, if you think that's your destiny, and that's still a pretty unsexy path in terms of getting to where you want to go. There is so much more value in playing college sports than to get you to a professional level to make money. It is, and somehow parents or, people that influence these kids have lost the thread on that pretty dramatically. And I don't want it to sound like I don't think players should maximize their earning potential, because I really do. Like, I understand for a lot of, especially these Division I guys at a high level, a lot of them will have their maximum earning potential while they are in college, starring at a place that dramatically cares about their athletic future at that place. But there's a whole, that's a very small number of people in the grand scheme of college athletics in general, going from Division I all the way through 2, 3, NAI, JUCO, the whole thing. There's just not for most people, that's not the world they're going to live in. But you see, Caleb Williams get these big deals, or, before that, like DJU was in Dr. Pepper commercials, and you see these guys making all this money. You're like, well, if they can make that, I can at least make a little bit. And it just doesn't play out that way. And listen, if you want to go out and ask and see what you can get, like, I don't have a problem with that. But if you're going to be shopping somebody to different schools, you got to live with the consequences of getting caught. And Rodney Hill ended up in that situation. It's something I think we're going to see more and more of, because when I read this story, A, I wasn't shocked at all, and B, I recognized exactly the kind of behavior and thinking that leads to something like this happening. This isn't new just because, this particular case is new, but this type of thinking isn't new just because of NIL. This is how a lot of people have thought about their kids in athletics for a long time before this. There just happens to be a new avenue now to try and take advantage or try and maximize, however you want to put it, with these kids' earning potential and their futures and everything like that. That's why, we talk about how Coach Rule's approach is different a lot of the time, but that's why I really appreciate the way he talks about recruiting, where he wants to help you find a home. If you're good enough, the money is going to be there kind of regardless of where you go. If you're productive and a good teammate and you win, like, the money will be there no matter where you go. Now you're going to be talking about some different sums, sure. But if you are that type of guy, you're going to make that money. You're going to make a pretty close to that amount of money regardless. You're going to be in the same neighborhood. That's why, when DB talks about David Sanders Jr., whose announcement comes up on Saturday, when he talks about David Sanders Jr.'s his decision not being about money, like, that's what he means. He's not saying that there's not going to be money involved, right? He's not saying somebody's still not writing a check for David Sanders. But if you're talking about, and listen, I'm going to throw these numbers out. They're big numbers, and I don't know if they're accurate for David Sanders, just an example. But if you're talking about $800,000 versus $1 million, it's like, yeah, that's $200,000 is a lot of money. But if you're a college kid, the fit is worth that amount of money. Having the right fit is worth that amount of money. And like, there's a line in Moneyball, which is one of my favorite movies, where Billy Beane talks about, I don't remember if it's in the book or if it's in the movie, but Billy Beane talks about how he only took the offer from the New York Mets because of the money. He was a first-round draft pick, but he also had a scholarship to go play football at Stanford. Now, ironically enough, he probably would have made NIL money in today's day and age, and he wouldn't have had to make that decision. But he always regretted making a decision solely based on the money. And I know a lot of us in the real world have to make those decisions all the time. I get that. There's a practicality to this situation. But if you're making the decision between, okay, you've already got what you need. Let's put that on, let's make that assumption, right? We're not talking about being, not being able to feed yourself or house yourself or anything like that versus, oh, I have to take this job because now I can do those things. We're talking about, hey, you've got all your basic needs met, and we're talking about extra in terms of money over here. The sacrifice of good fit, a good, a job you're passionate about, something that makes the most sense for you, home, the way Matt Rule talks about it. If you're talking about home versus you're talking about some place that maybe you're not passionate about, some place that maybe is not a good fit, some place that is offering you more money despite those things, that's where you have to seriously start considering the conversation of, okay, all my needs are met. I'm doing okay. Now I have to start weighing some other things. And Billy Beane in Moneyball always talked about how he never wanted to make a decision based on money again. Now, that's with all needs met already, right? But purely based on money, he tried not to make any decisions on that in his personal life ever again. He famously turned down a huge offer, the biggest general manager offer in the history of major league or of major sports at the time, from the Boston Red Sox. And I think that's a reflection of kind of that decision-making process. When you allow money to be the only deciding factor, a lot of times you make a bad decision. We saw that with Rodney Hill here with Florida State, where whether it was him, whether his parents, he's shifting blame off to his parents, and I'm willing to entertain the fact that maybe he was more involved than he's claiming at this point. But when you're making decisions solely based on money and not about like, oh, well, I had a pretty decent year at Florida State last year. Trey Benson's going to the NFL. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to get more carries and become less of a specialist and more of a featured back. Like, yeah, maybe they're not offering you the same amount of money as Arkansas or Miami or whoever else was this agent was shopping him around to, but you have to weigh the opportunity cost as well. Like, just because there's more money on the table doesn't mean it doesn't cost you more. And that's something I think we're going to have some tough stories about kids. And Rodney Hill actually obviously ended up okay. He's at Arkansas. He's probably going to have about the same similar role that he would have at Florida State. But you're going to start having some tough stories about kids who are, I do call them kids still because 18 to 22. I was a kid when I was 18 to 22. But you're going to have some tough stories about these kids who, yeah, they have an opportunity to be well compensated now, but there's going to be, adult decisions and adult consequences now that adult money is involved, right? Like that's a thing that's going to be more and more prevalent, and I'm okay with it. Obviously, I'm not in it directly, but I'm okay with it because I'd rather have them have the opportunity to make money and then deal with the consequences, because I think that's better than the alternative. I think you have to give people the leeway to make those decisions for themselves, but you're going to see more and more of this. Hopefully it corrects at some point and regulates itself, but time will tell on that one. Coming up next, we will get into more college football, Nebraska football. We've got NFL coming up and Major League Baseball. Lots of stuff to talk about today here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I'm Ravi Lulla. DB will be joining me shortly when he gets done with practice over at Westside. Shane Schillerberg keeping me company until then.
You know what? Talking about Moneyball,
What's up?
that gave me an idea for our first Husker intro. So just think about that.
I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
I always love your intros for game day. Those are a lot of fun. And Moneyball is one of my favorite movies. It is. My buddy Jermaine the other day, we were talking. I think it's definitely in my top 5 movies of all time. I love that movie.
So we'll just have to wait a few weeks and see if I can come up with something.
Yeah, I'm excited. That'll be good to see. I mean, we're 18 days away, Shane. 18 days.
You did the math on that?
I mean, I just took 31. That's when Nebraska plays.
Come on, math, you dick.
I subtracted the 13 that we're on today, and I came up with 18. So not hard math. We got it.
So you got it down.
Yeah, I think so. I know some people are like, well, you don't count the day you're on. I'm going to call it 18 days. We'll call it 18 days. We're almost there.
It seems like it's been forever.
It has. It feels like
it's been a minute. It's been a while. It's been a long time. Whatever you want to throw out there, it's been too long.
It has been too long. That's the important part. It's been too long. Our long wait is nearing over. As we continue, we'll ramp up our talk on college football. Yesterday, though, the AP poll came out, the AP preseason poll. Nebraska did receive votes. They ended up with 16 total points. That didn't mean that 16 people voted for them.
It wasn't they weren't on the list. Where were they at?
So they were 36th, 37th. So they were one of the last couple teams that received points.
Is that where you expected it?
I think that's about right for the perception of them. I think only 2 people, I saw the ballot breakdown, only 2 people had them in their ballots. One of them was at 22, I believe, and the other one was at 14, which was obviously an outlier for Nebraska. But I actually, like, if you kind of think about the way we've talked about this season and the way the beginning of their schedule sets up, DB and I were talking about last week about, okay, if you could guarantee me 8-4 in either the Music City or the Citrus Bowl, like 14 would end up being about right. I think you'd be somewhere in that neighborhood if that's what they end up being. Maybe that's a 9-3 versus an 8-4, but honestly, somewhere between the 14 that was voted for them and the 22 that was voted for them, like somewhere in that range is probably pretty accurate if Nebraska is who at least I think they're going to be this year.
Do you prefer the uphill climb or downhill?
What do you mean?
Uphill climb as in, so if you said they were at 32, and if you think they can get down to 14, I mean, that's the uphill climb.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I definitely prefer the uphill climb versus like starting at 1 and ending up at 14.
Like Colorado falling or whatever last year.
We don't want to be like Colorado in anything, just at all. Except for maybe having some mountains, but I'll trade the mountains for not having Dion as my head coach any day of the week. That guy is, oof. I don't need to get on another Dion path here, but no, I would definitely rather kind of come from off the radar. But I do think it's interesting because the 14 is going to be looked at as like, oh, this guy's kind of off the like way off in left field over here, but like I said, if Nebraska is who I think they could be, I don't think, Adam McClintock has them at 8-4 in his projections. I don't think 14 is crazy. Like, I think in that range is about right. Now for preseason, I get that seems high based on what they were last year, but preseason polls are sort of trying to predict how they think things are going to finish. So I don't have a huge problem with it. And I will say I did look up who the voters were. Neither one of them are either Nebraskans or even from the Midwest. The 14th place voter was, I believe, a San Diego State guy. And the 22nd place voter was a Pac-12/Pac-2 guy. So not, and maybe you could be like, oh, well, they're just not familiar with Nebraska. They're not familiar with the Big Ten, whatever. But it certainly wasn't a homer pick, is my point, with Nebraska receiving those points in the preseason AP poll. So I thought that was interesting. We may do this later. I think we'll certainly do it before the season starts. But ESPN put out based on the AP preseason poll, put out a ceiling and floor for each AP team that I thought was pretty interesting because there's some variance in there that I think is pretty interesting to talk about. But I want to get to it with DB here when he gets here in a little bit. I think there's some pretty interesting stuff there, and maybe some lower floors than people would think for some teams that are highly thought of. Not looking at you or anything, USC, but that is that's something I do want to get to later Another thing, we'll see if we have time to get to it with DB later today, but there was a quarterback ranking, a trait ranking put out by Dan Orlovsky yesterday, that he basically took 7 categories and ranked the top 10 NFL quarterbacks in each of those categories. And some super interesting results there, and especially with the conversations DB and I have been having over the last couple weeks in regards to quarterbacks, both at the high school, college, and NFL level, and how they're being paid, how they're being viewed, what that means for your team if you've got one of these guys. Some super interesting stuff in there that we'll get to with DB here in a little bit. I did want to take a minute here just to thank some people that some listeners reached out and wished me a happy birthday yesterday, which I greatly appreciate. I turned 37 as as I'm inching closer to Shane's age day by day here. I think there's probably some people that think you're younger than I am, Shane.
Well, I am.
Oh yeah,
maturity wise.
But I did want to. The reason I bring it up, I promise I'm not fishing for late birthday compliments. The reason I bring it up is it was kind of a big one for me because it did mark the 30th anniversary of when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was diagnosed on my 7th birthday, which sucked. Can I say sucked on the air, Shane?
You already did.
Oh, okay. Well, you can say anything once, right?
Yes.
It was not. I'm not a fan. I would not recommend it. But so my birthdays are always a little bit strange for me. But yesterday was a big one, as it was the 30th year, marked the 30th year since my diagnosis with type 1 diabetes. And the reason I bring that up is twofold. One, I know there's some listeners out there because they've reached out to me that either are diabetic, they have kids that are diabetic, and I just want, I like bringing it up because it can feel like a very lonely disease sometimes. It's not something you can see. A lot of times, people forget that you even have it, which is not their fault, but it's certainly not something you forget you ever have. It's a constant battle, as most chronic illnesses are. And so I just like to kind of remind people that are dealing with it, especially with young kids or have been dealing with it for a long time themselves, that, I just like to remind, I've been doing this for 30 years now, and I'm still here, and I'm doing okay. And doesn't mean it's not challenging, but it's something you get through. And, every day we're one step closer to a cure, and that's a big deal to me. And it's a thing that I deeply, deeply believe. But also because a lot of my story with diabetes is deeply tied into sports, and how, Coach Rule talks about all the time how important it is for Nebraska football to represent people well, and how important it is, sports is a bigger part of life. And a lot of my story with diabetes is the effect that sports has had on making my life better in some challenging times. So thank you to everyone that wished me a happy birthday yesterday. And if you're dealing with something, whether it's diabetes or a kid with diabetes or anything with a chronic illness, man, I gotta say, there's a lot of answers in sports. So I would encourage you to look that way. Coming up next, we'll have DB joining us here shortly as we wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, here on the Pillar Exterior stage at the beautiful Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where you can see us before 4 select Nebraska games this year. On the Fridays before games, we'll be doing 4 live breakfast shows. First one coming up August 30th before UTEP. Those will be presented by EP Foundation Repair. Go to eventbrite.com, search for Hurrdat Sports Radio to get your tickets for this event. That'll include breakfast. I've got a few different options there of what breakfast you can get, and then you can also purchase some morning breakfast cocktails as well here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. So make sure you go check that out. Eventbrite, search for Hurrdat Sports Radio. Joining me now is my co-host, DB. What's up, bud?
Hi, buddy.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are we doing?
Good. How's practice this morning?
Practice is good. I'm pleasantly surprised. We have a lot more depth than we did a year ago.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's
well, because that young group of kids was pretty good that was
Yeah.
playing JV last year, right?
Yeah, we got a good sophomore group. too.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm pleasantly surprised. We're going an actual 2 deep.
Oh,
So-
okay. Because you guys platoon. You guys,
We try,
platoon a lot of guys.
Yeah,
or you'd
we-
like to.
but we won't as much this year.
Mhm.
You know, CJ. Some of these guys will go both ways.
Yeah.
But Campbell is We got some fellas.
Good ball player.
Yeah. So it's
He was really good last year. Didn't get a lot of the.
He was kind of the unsung glue guy. He is really, really, really hard to block, and he's gotten unselfish this year, so he's going to play some O-line for us.
How did
it change it? I mean,
changes dynamic there up front.
I'm like, if you can hear excitement without me being over the top.
Yeah, without gushing.
Yeah, well, I just know we're a lot further along than we were last year. Doesn't mean we'll be better, because that will be tough to do. But I mean, our two deeps, like, we have good competitive practices. Like, our scrappy almost, I don't know, man. We're all right.
How do the kids deal? How do the kids do with the 530s?
They love it.
Yeah,
like it was their vote.
I was like, didn't they choose that last year?
It was their vote, and you can only have a walk through the second time. So we go back at 3:35. We go 3:35 to whatever it is, 4:55 or 5, and we do a lot of our special teams. We'll do our blitz install of the day, walk through that. So it's all right.
You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised.
And you guys start same. So you guys 30th? Is that your first game?
Yeah, we are.
Or are you a Thursday? You the 29th?
Nope, we're 30th. We got North.
Okay.
So
I couldn't remember. You got like half your schedule on Thursday this year.
Yeah, it is actually.
It's like 4 of the 9, right?
We do have 4 Thursday games.
Yeah, so that'll be.
It really helps me because
of the Nebraska stuff.
Yeah, I travel.
Yeah. Is it usually doesn't high school usually start a week before college?
Yeah, there's no week 0 games this year.
That's what it is for high school, because there is for college.
So that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, but there are some good ones that opening weekend.
Just feels like they're making us wait a little bit longer. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Give me some extras. So give me some football. Let's go.
Yeah, it's good. Once you get pictures out of the way, you're like in full swing. That's like the last
winter pictures.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll practice too. So it's like, Coach
okay. If I had to guess, Lamonji's a guy that like practices the pictures too.
Yeah.
Is that a real thing?
Oh yeah.
You like walk through on how you're going to do the pictures?
It is incredible. It's incredibly efficient. There isn't any hem hawing around. Sometimes you take like these big group pictures.
Yeah, it takes forever. You don't know where you're going. Listen, and then, yes,
it won't.
That's exactly what I had in my mind.
It's not his jam either. So he makes sure that
he doesn't want to waste time. Nope. He doesn't want to take any longer than it has to.
There'll be none of that.
Yeah, Lamonji doesn't strike. I don't know him super well. I've been around him a little bit, obviously.
He couldn't know from his personality.
But like, does not strike me as a real like, hey, let's do a photo shoot guy.
Nope. Nope. At our parents' meeting, he had line of the night. He goes, hey, cleats, and sometimes, not everything's affordable, and I want to be up front so you guys can kind of plan ahead. Because you can wear any color you want to in terms of cleats as long as they're red, black, or white.
That's a very old school dad way of describing something.
He's like, look, I'm a 3-time cancer survivor. I always support it. Pink is good, just not on the football field. Don't you guys worry about that. We'll do plenty of shout outs for our cancer survivors. Oh yeah, he nips all that in the bud. Like, you don't have to worry about that.
That's super funny.
It's Youngstown, man.
No nonsense in Ohio, apparently.
Yeah, Youngstown, him and Dan Campbell. I mean, you listened to Dan Campbell's presser the other day?
Just biting kneecaps out here. No.
So you talk about a guy who comes across, because I always.
You want to talk about guys that are weird.
Yeah, right. They're eccentric head coaches who comes across as kind of no nonsense or funny and like it's whatever. But
now he's funny because he started winning. Remember we talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, with like Stefanski and those guys. Like, I can imagine his practices are pretty legit. Because I was just kind of going back and I had NFL live in the library, right? Because I want to hear what Tomlin said about Fields.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder what his practices are like. Because for as flash and dash as they are on offense, they're tough.
Yeah.
Like it's
which you don't always see go hand in hand.
No. And that was pre Jahmyr Gibbs hamstring injury. But
yeah,
I just like, I think coaches' personalities, man, they matter.
Oh, yeah.
They really
reflect their team.
Typically.
Like their team reflects them a lot.
Typically.
That's why
you can get a little bit squirrely in the pros.
Yes. Yeah.
Because those guys are professionals.
But high school and college especially.
Oh, yeah.
The younger the team, it seems like more they reflect the head coaches
100%.
And not just the head coaches, but usually the head coach hires assistants that kind of reflect their personality, at least to a certain extent, even if it sort of manifests itself in different ways. And so, in college, you see it all the time.
I listen to like Sweigard and those guys. Like they sound just like their coach.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you guys are panicking about left tackle. I'm not panicking. We got a job to do. Yeah, that sounds a lot like your coach.
And on the negative side of it, you see that too.
Yeah. If you're a little temperamental.
A little, I think the word we used yesterday was contentious with people. Not that I'm thinking about anybody specifically.
I asked a couple of their local guys about that.
Yeah.
And I think the consensus is Keeler earned that.
Sure.
But everybody else, it was like, it's a gutsy stance.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very low reward.
Yeah.
It is very high risk.
It is. There is almost no, and that's kind of one of the things where I look at, okay, even if Keeler's got it coming, right? Let's say Deion's right. Let's say nobody does like working with that guy. I assume that's who he was talking to. Let's say nobody likes working with that guy. They still, that Deion's dead on that. What does he get out of that if he's right? Absolutely nothing, right?
Pound of flesh, I told you so.
This
is not worth it.
Where does that get him?
It's not worth
it. But on the other side, where does it get him if he's wrong?
Yeah, I almost, because I'm not a big Instagram guy, but he is one guy that like I follow on Instagram.
Deion?
And his sayings are almost always to the contrary
of what he actually does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredibly ironic.
So I just kind of, I think you're being a little facetious.
No, it's super ironic that because if you were to, this is part of the reason I don't like him. Because he's just.
Hey, how do you really feel though? I'm kind of confused.
I think he's the worst.
Do you? So you don't like him?
Not a huge fan.
Yeah.
It's because he just comes off as full of it.
Yeah.
Like when you're posting stuff, you're talking about humility and whatever and all this stuff, and then you act like Deion acts. It's like, yeah, I need those things to line up a little bit better, bud.
So,
just a little bit.
I don't know if I can still find it on the story.
Even in the same neighborhood would be fine.
Like roughly.
Yeah. Like same zip code, same area code, even anything close.
So today it was. I might have already passed the story. He had Chris Fowler out there with him. It was about finding your inner peace. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I might want to do that. See how that's vibing for you.
In general, inner peace is a great idea.
Yeah, right.
Maybe all of his posts are aspirational. He's like, maybe I'll be like this one day. He's only 57 years old.
Oh, so here we go.
He's been looking for his inner peace since like the 90s.
So today it was you putting folks in the game that ain't on your team. You have folks next to you that ain't with you. You got folks sleeping good next to you, and you ain't getting no rest. There are folks making money off your name, and they're only there to see you lose your game. Identify your Judas. I'm like, that's intentional.
Yeah, it's also incredibly.
Maybe
I'm trying to find the right word for it.
Yeah,
but you know how people kind of like self-sabotage and then they think they're the victim.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or they cause all their own problems.
I don't know if that's Deion, but I definitely know those people. Keep it moving.
They cause a lot of their own problems, and then they're like, the world is stacked against me, but I'll keep persevering. Yeah. And it's like, the call's coming from inside the house, dummy.
Is that the whole babysitter movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what that vibe gives me on Deion. It's like, identify your Judas, look in the mirror, brother.
Yeah.
Like that's what
so coaches are starting to divulge a lot more. Like I was listening to Ryan Day talk about Julian Sam.
Yeah.
Apparently he likes him quite a bit. Let's not go ahead and pencil in Will Howard.
Can you
coach can you
imagine if Will Howard doesn't start?
I don't know, but apparently Sam is like,
oh, he's the real deal.
And they said it out loud. I know you think I'm crazy with pressers.
No, I don't.
Give it a try, man.
But I said when it happened that quarterback room was stupid. And you're going to end up with the highest profile transfer maybe not starting.
Yeah.
Coming up next, we'll talk to Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are efforting our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald, who will join us shortly. In the meantime, DB and I were just going over.
Pretty salty.
Yeah, you put a lot of salt in that, man.
Yeah, I needed it though.
like a lot.
I was feeling a little off,
Yeah.
but it's
Well,
whatever.
it's active. You're getting out there.
At least we didn't have to set up equipment in the rain. That'll probably be tomorrow.
Yeah, is it supposed to rain again tomorrow?
Yeah, Ollie Williams.
It's
gonna rain.
It's gonna rain.
Yeah.
Not nearly as salty as me listening to you go through Dion's inspirational posts. But
Oh, you like the second one I read?
dude, that guy's so full of things
Stop.
that I can't say on the
It's all
radio.
right, man. We got big week 2 game, man. Big week 2 game.
Like Nebraska.
How many folks from Colorado will make this trip? Because this time around,
including or not including the team.
listen, this time around, Nebraska fans will, I think, intentionally be unbearable. I think the whole Nebraska nice thing,
Mm-hmm.
it always kind of, like, full disclosure, and I've said this before, like, it always kind of bugged me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a lot more palatable if you're winning.
Yeah.
It really bugs me now that we're not.
There's
Because I never like loved it.
Yeah.
I wanted this place to be like, you're getting your tail kicked when you come here.
Yeah. So there's a saying and I don't know if it originated with this person, but a person that I don't particularly like that much, but I like the saying a lot. I'm trying to do something that you do where I take things.
You find a positive even though you don't like it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really like this person's general message. But the Nebraska nice thing reminds me of this thing. And
see how you kind of use it as a cut down?
No, I was giving you credit.
Oh, of course you were.
I was like, hey, DB has imparted this wisdom on me that I should try and take things from people.
I see you.
It's also,
I like the way you landed that plane.
it's
Well
also
done.
biblical. You're supposed to find truth wherever you see it,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So I found some truth in this person I don't particularly care for that much. And it was basically, and the Nebraska nice thing reminds me of this, is there's a difference between being nice because you don't have any other choice because you're weak, and choosing to be nice when you could choose to be violent.
Yeah.
Like being nice when you don't have any other choice, you're not gentle, you're harmless, right? Being nice when you have the capability to be violent, that's being gentle.
I got you. Yeah.
I always like Nebraska nice used to be we were gentle. We could do you great harm and chose not to. Nebraska nice now feels like we're harmless. And I need it to go back to the other way.
Me too. Defend your yard.
I need it to go back to being gentle, not harmless.
Need more yard dogs. We got Sam, Shane?
Sam is here.
We got Sam McKewon here from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
Good. How are you?
We're hanging in there, Sam. We were having this conversation about Nebraska nice, and I told him, I said it was a lot easier to deal with when we were winning. I never liked it, but I tolerated it. I don't like it now, but it's just kind of been amplified because we aren't winning. Aren't you really starting there with this team and their resurgence? Like, you simply have to be better at home.
Yeah. Heck yeah. The last time Nebraska won a senior day game was 2018. That's how long it's been.
That's crazy.
They lost 3 times to Iowa. They lost to Minnesota in 2020 in an empty stadium. And then they lost to Wisconsin in 2022. So it's been 6 years since they won on senior day. That's something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it 5 years since they've been 1-0? Is it 2019?
It is. Yeah.
So there's a lot of those there's a lot of those streaks that need to come to an end.
That's incredible.
It for sure is. They haven't done themselves any favors in the ways that in the games they agreed to take and the schedules that they agreed to. And the Ireland thing, that was a 2-year ordeal, and Illinois got a week 0 game that, quite honestly, I'm surprised Nebraska agreed to that. I wouldn't have agreed to it. So there's things that Nebraska did to not help itself over the last several years. But yeah, it's been 5 years since they were 1-0.
I think last year was the best home record we'd had in how many years? It's been a minute.
Well, they were undefeated in 2016.
So I would guess it would be 2016.
Yeah, I think so.
And they lost, and they won all 4 of their games in 2018 at home. So they beat Minnesota, Illinois, Bethune-Cookman, and Michigan State all at home. So that year, I think they were 4-2 or 4-3. So probably since 2018, that was their best record at home. That would be my hunch.
Yeah.
I'm doing it off the top of my head.
That's
but
where
that
that first and foremost, that's where we got to start, because you can't even begin to have the falling in love with favorable, like even use the word favorable schedules until you start winning at home. I mean, that's just one example of why I hate schedule talk, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't understand the optimism, because I do. It just hasn't worked out that way.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see the two sides of that coin. Is that Nebraska really has not earned the right to talk about winning a schedule, because they're not Ohio State. You know, Ohio State's probably looking at its schedule and going, you know, geez, we got to go to Oregon and we got to play this game and we got to play that game, and that's because they're trying to make the playoffs. You know, I mean, I'm not saying Ohio State got screwed. I am saying they got to play Penn State and Oregon on the road, you know, 3 weeks apart, and Nebraska's a home game in the middle. So, you know, there's things that are obviously challenging, but Nebraska doesn't earn the right to until they actually start winning games. And then you can say, okay, yeah, they benefited from the schedule. 2016, Nebraska benefited from having a pretty manageable schedule, but they took care of it. They beat Illinois and Purdue and Indiana and Minnesota, and they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat. And they won at Northwestern. So they were able to handle their business. But when you don't handle your business, it's kind of strange to talk about a favorable schedule.
Right, Sam, but it is still, I mean, you can still look at it and be like, hey, this is more manageable. Like, both of those things can be true at the same time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's very, you know, if Nebraska was saddled this year with USC's schedule, I don't think we would be talking about as much optimism. It would be, holy crap, they've got to play LSU in week 1. You know, I mean, that would be the discussion. I mean, it would be like, well, you know, you hope they stay within 10 points, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it matters what schedule you have. Obviously in 21, the schedule was as hard as anybody can really remember it, and they didn't win. But, you know, if you gave that team in 21 this schedule, it probably won't go 3-9. They're probably 6-6 or 7-5. So, you know, schedules are helpful. And I think Nebraska's got one that certainly can work for them.
Sam, let me so 2 weeks ago, so let's just say pre-Teddy P injury, we were talking about Nebraska's offensive line depth, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, they could play X amount, 8, 9. The Prohaska injury is announced, and this level of concern over the offensive line has like skyrocketed. And we're talking about Sands, a good, you know, obviously a good player, but Sands a body compared to that total number. Is that on us to manage in our head, like the magnitude of that, or is it what it is until we start playing in a way that we need to play that looks successful? It doesn't
probably a little both, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nebraska fans are getting conditioned to the other shoe dropping.
Just kind of like doomy gloomy,
waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a terrible injury, and you feel for him. I do think Nebraska can manage. You know, I think they're going to be okay if Corcoran stays healthy. I'm trying to imagine. There have been other injuries over the years that felt more devastating. And that's not to knock at all what Teddy's experiencing, because it's really terrible. But Nebraska can manage it. They can get through it, and they're going to have to try. You know, and you know, I guess the upside of it is that Teddy's going to get another year if that's what he wants, and he really deserves a couple of years just to be healthy. You know, and to be his full strength. And sometimes you have a run of knee injuries, and all of a sudden you're healthy for 3 years, or for a long time. I think of Frank Gore, who was probably going to go to the NFL Hall of Fame. Nobody really thought he was going to have much of a career because of all the injuries he had.
Yeah.
As it turns out, Frank Gore was one of the most durable players in the NFL after he had all those injuries.
Yeah, 2 ACLs in a 20-year career, or 18, or whatever it was.
Yeah, he was. I mean, you know, he had an incredible NFL career.
Yeah.
In college, he was not great, and not because he wasn't talented. It was because he was banged up all the time. And so Teddy, has to kind of look for those stories to kind of use as inspiration, because sometimes, for whatever reason, they really get it right on the second or third knee surgery.
It just feels like the tenor has changed and no game has happened yet. I feel like we're kind of, I don't know. I feel like that's on us. Like, what happened? Well, the answer is we haven't lost a game yet, but I feel like the tenor has changed.
It has. It changed last week. I mean, I think that was more about this coaching staff is trying to condition these guys to, dial in.
This is still a really good defense. They still have promise at the quarterback spot. You still have depth at wide. Like, a lot of things are still in play.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think, like I said, like some of the comments last week from Rule, I think were designed to, to talk to his team, not necessarily too much of the fan base.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree.
He wants his team to dial in and to be really, really good, and not to, one of the ways that you avoid losing one-score games is you don't play one-score games. You go out and you play at your very best.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And you don't let UTEP hang around. You beat Colorado by 21. You don't allow the mistakes to let a team creep back in. When you get up on 14-0 on Wisconsin, you finish that off, and it doesn't turn into nail biting. Same way with Iowa 2 years. It was 2021. Nebraska dominated Iowa all day long. Then they get a punt block and the whole game changed.
Yep.
And
they coughed up a 2-score lead.
Oh yeah, they completely dominated that game, and then
what's weird, Sam? Like, and maybe it is, and Coach Frost said it out loud, and he was vilified for it. But he was, I mean, I probably would have picked different wording, like we need to break, we need to catch a break or something like that, and everybody kind of took it and ran. It's like, no, you make your own breaks, you speak it into existence. But I mean, unfortunately, I had the pleasure of catching myself sitting through UCLA, Nebraska with Bo, and remember, I know how bad that pregame was. I remember the whole Jamie Williams Bo thing before that game, like. But Nebraska remember those warm-ups that, like, it was, I was like, oh gosh, how'd we get up 21-3? This is a total debacle. Mm-hmm. But one mistake, you don't convert, and it like snowballed.
Yeah, it spiraled.
And UCLA goes on this crazy run, and we have the fake punt, and we don't get it by a foot. And it's like, this has been happening for so long. I get the premise. If just one time you were on the other side of that, you think that you could shake it. But the coach in me and the player is like, that's not on me. Don't put that on me. But I could see where if you wanted to convince, no, hey, man, it's kind of a real thing, man. This bugaboo thing is. But it's just amazing how something, like we talked about a goddamn onside kick overseas for 2 years. You had plenty of opportunities outside of that onside kick to not have that be a thing. I feel like we speak the negativity into existence.
Yeah, I think that can happen. I think that happens sometimes.
I mean, what is that?
Yeah. I mean, I think some of it is just, storytelling that we do, but simultaneously, it's just, it's been a tough run. The last 7-8 years have been tough, and people don't always know how to handle it because it's so foreign to what they had experienced. You'd have to go back to people that grew up, that lived in the 40s and the 50s to really find people who identify with it. And as we all know, life was different. Like, it was people just, people checked in on Nebraska football on Saturday, and then they went back and did whatever for 6 days. Now it's all the time. Mm-hmm. It's all the time. And so, like, everybody's caught up in it these days. And so, I think there's a kind of that's why this season's so important, because if they can win,
I agree.
Then some of the pressure is turned off. And I think then everybody can kind of start to relax and say, okay, we're actually pretty good. We've now gone to a bowl game. now we can do X, Y, and Z, and we can move forward, and we believe in this. If it's a struggle again, then I think there's a kind of like, well, what do we do now? I mean, we've done this and we've done this and we've done this. Well, what do we do? And you just keep going back to they've done everything they can do off the field, right? They've built the training table, they got the building, they got this great facility that everybody
you're
gets to
starting
enjoy.
to accrue depth. You feel like you have a really good staff. I'm with you.
They've done all those things. So like now it's about taking all the things that you've done that it's going to build a good long-term program. And let's be honest, Scott Frost didn't do all of those things, or even a lot of those things. Rhule's good at those things. He's good at that. Now just go on the field and win the games that you're supposed to win, and then you begin to build from there. But Rhule's process is solid, and his off the field culture building is really good too. Now you just have to go out and actually play the winning football. And there's another day and another time to talk about whether, the kind of offense they want to play is really going to get them, to the college football playoff with any consistency if they can't recruit 5-star players. I am a little dubious as to whether Nebraska can play this style of offense and get there without getting 5-star.
Well, I don't think we know what this style of offense is yet. Like, what do you mean?
The style of offense that Satterfield had at South Carolina, the 49ers pro style, system.
I think, know, man. They beat a good I don't know about that. They beat a pretty good Clemson team. Tennessee, I don't.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, I know what they did. I mean, I know they won games. I've just and again with the 12-team expansion, somebody's going to have to make the dang thing, right?
So who you think is Michigan? Could they replicate that again? Like, do you think we have to be more dynamic, or like what do you mean? Like, what's the alternative?
Yeah, I mean Michigan,
because that didn't like blow the doors off me, but that was a good offense. They were tough,
they were really
man.
really good. They were.
They're
really
concept
good
like
linemen.
yeah.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see if they're able to build the same culture under a different head coach. I know he coached under Harbaugh too, but
I could see that offense in Lincoln.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to the style of offense. In fact, I like it quite a bit. It's just that, what Oregon's going to do this year, and people will see what Oregon's going to do, is conducive to maybe not winning a national title, but it'll get you in the top 10 a lot if they're able to do. And they have a lot of talent too. Don't get me wrong; they have 4- and 5-star players as well.
I wonder if Nebraska could be Penn State. I mean, I look at that offense and I'm like, they drop a lot of balls.
Yeah, it's not very good.
But Allard doesn't. He doesn't turn the ball over. They run it pretty well. They're going to be spectacular on defense, and you watch, man. They're going to make a run to the playoffs, and it's like, oh, okay.
I think they'll probably make the playoffs. Now, for what it's worth, their best teams, the quarterback ran all the time. So Trace McSorley ran constantly. And my hunch is,
well, shoot, that was Urban Meyer too. Like a lot of these guys,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like his bread and butter was like QB run game.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And so we'll see. Like I appreciate the way Ryan Day's done it, and I think it's more aesthetically pleasing to watch what Ryan Day's doing. But we have to remember that Ryan Day has signed like 9 5-star receivers.
Yeah, we asked.
That's why you are good. Because of the receivers are really good.
We asked Keels, their play-by-play. I said, I'm not calling this an identity crisis, but Judkins and Trayvon, those guys are really good. You could hand the ball off more, especially because Will Howard is dual threat, and he basically, in short, was like, yeah, we're pretty dynamic outside the numbers. We need to continue to be dynamic outside the numbers. And I was like, oh, that must be nice, because if I have those two guys,
you kind of want to lean on them.
They're getting touches.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's interesting because one of the reasons Lincoln Riley brought it up at Big Ten Media Days about Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, and he said it in a way where he already knew. that there was going to be tension between them is because Kelly wants to do it a certain way, and Day wants to keep turning out NFL quarterbacks who throw for 5,000 or 4,000 yards. And it's going to be an interesting tug of war to watch up there for sure. Again, like Georgia can run the offense it runs, and it's going to win a lot of games because
I do think Day's experience under Kelly, working for and coached by, may buoy that some, but
yeah,
we'll see. But I know one thing, that those backs, especially if I watch what Michigan has done to me the last couple of years, with snow flurries, man, I'm gonna let those guys get touches.
You think you'll be able to see who won the battle stylistically based on if it's Will Howard or Julian Sayin who wins the job? Will Howard feels like a Chip Kelly quarterback.
Yeah, I would if they're going to ride this huge season. If they're going to ride this huge season, it's really important on a true freshman. Then he must be really, really special. Like he must be, I don't even know, one of the best true freshmen ever, because they can roll the ball out and win 10 games with any quarterback. They're in this to win the whole thing, and so you have to be really confident that you have that player, and that, quite frankly, there just hasn't been a true freshman quarterback over the last however many years who's been that good. There just hasn't. They're really good as redshirt freshmen, Bryce Young included, but it's very hard to accomplish that when you're a true freshman. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. The day's going to come when Nebraska will want to have the conversation about what it looks like to get to the CFP. Maybe that'll happen this year. And when they get to that conversation, I'm going to be fascinated to watch, what they do on offense and defense, and whether they feel like that's what they need to do to get to the top. Because there's a different conversation to have once they start winning. And that conversation is, okay, how do we get inside the 12? What do we do to get inside the 12? And, and what that also means is, what do we do to get inside the top 3 in the Big Ten? Because that's what you're going to have to do. And that'll be a fun conversation when it comes around.
I don't know. My gut says I'd rather look a lot more like Georgia and Michigan with run action and shot plays than I would Oregon or Ohio State.
Old Urban Meyer. Yeah.
You know what I mean? At first blush.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would pick. One, 2 of those aren't nearly as dynamic, but man, it really lends itself to some good complementary football. And a lot of other teams don't want to play that way. That's the thing.
That's true. That's a good point. Very good point.
That's Sam McKewon.
That's a very, very good point.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
It's a weird question, but if I'm on defense, would you rather play against Michigan or Oregon? I'd rather play against Oregon.
Yeah, yes. I want to play against the least physical team.
But Oregon
they're still physical.
But
Michigan enforces their will their will on you a little bit more.
What does a playoff caliber offense look like? That's it's different.
By the way, Trevor Lawrence, true freshman.
Yeah, good point.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, here at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. If you're headed into work today, make sure you buckle that seatbelt. Wearing a seatbelt prevents injuries and saves lives, but you have to wear it properly. Make it click. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. You brought up an interesting question there at the end with Sam. Couple interesting questions, actually, throughout that conversation. Number one, what does a national championship offense look like?
We've seen multiple.
Number two, and Sam kind of brought this up, and I think it's worth a discussion.
You know what's crazy?
Yes.
Of the things things that you think, I don't know if you'll need to pull up a list of the last 7 national champions.
I've already got it up.
What could they all do on offense? Look at the list.
Run. LSU in 2019, I'm going to call it
an anomaly.
Clemson in 2018, I don't really remember.
Who was the key, though? That backfield, like when
I don't remember who was in the backfield. Was that's pre-ETN, isn't it?
No,
or is that ETN?
It's ETN.
Okay, so they can run the ball. Bama can always run. Clemson in 2016, is that still the ETN?
And that was QB run game too.
Yes, with Deshaun.
Deshaun,
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Bama in 15 is Hurts.
No, that was what's his buckets in Tennessee, right?
Which one?
That wasn't that Henry?
Oh yeah, Derrick Henry. Yeah. I mean, Alabama always can run. Ohio State 14 is
that was Zeke running wild. So
2013 Florida State's probably an outlier with Jameis.
Yeah.
Them in 2019 or 2019 LSU.
So,
but before that, Bama.
The South Carolina thing struck me as odd because.
So that was the other question: is does Nebraska need?
It can win
super high end in order to run what we're talking about here. So we're two things from that, which I think are worth discussing. Number one, I guess I'm not sold that I'm 100% sure what they want to do on offense. I think it probably is, they talk about positionless football and stuff like that. So I think it's fair to assume, hey, if they could make their offense look like the 49ers, they'd be happy.
Well,
or some version of that.
Here's the thing, though. Why we act like we can't recall what we said. Remember when Michigan was like 7-0 and 6-0?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, they're not blowing anybody
out.
It's
not
they're
sexy.
They're not pulling away.
Games are weirdly close, but they weren't that close,
And I'm like, yeah. So every game's like 33-6.
Yeah, they're physically dominating.
35-9. Like, okay,
they're beating people's heads in.
And you wouldn't take that?
Oh, 100% I would take that.
I absolutely would.
Yeah. It's the best version of what Iowa does, basically. Like the high-end version of that model of football is Michigan.
Yeah, really good. They're really good at special teams.
Really good special teams, really good defense, and then limit the mistakes on offense and be a ball control.
Can't I recruit to that easier?
I think it's well, I don't know if easier. I don't know whether it's harder, though. Like, I don't know that it's easier.
If I don't have to be as dynamic for elite level skill
on the outside, outside the numbers.
But now, if you said to me, but DB, like,
so you have to,
there's more
wide receivers than there are
accessible.
linemen.
Okay, I would listen.
So I was going to linemen because if you're going to do that, you better be incredible at developing linemen. Because all the teams that we've seen be successful with that, whether it's Wisconsin back in the day, Iowa, Michigan, their line wasn't as good last year.
I don't know how much you enjoy like watching O-line play. But I'm telling you,
yeah.
And I said this real time to Sharpie during the broadcast at Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
What do I always? I've talked about this a ton with you off air. There are just teams where you think you fit the run game correctly.
Yeah.
And you look up and you look over at the sticks.
It's 2nd and 5.
And it's 2nd and 5.
Yeah.
Like that's a thing.
Their initial push is so good that they move, like they move the point of attack, right? So that by the time you are in the run fit, you've already lost.
Yeah. Watch Rutgers.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, that's not very dynamic. And it's gonna be 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 5.
Yeah, which you're gonna win a lot of games doing that.
They're gonna do that again.
It's gonna be 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1.
And it's not like Rutgers has 15 guys from the O-line getting drafted.
Yeah,
it's a style. It's a buy-in. Now, did I fall in love with Mike Hart over the last couple of years coaching? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because those backs looked a lot alike. I watched our guys. I watch our offense and inside run all the time, but I'm only our secondary running back coach.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not the lead guy, so I get to do a lot of the little cleanup stuff. Right? Like the just weird running back. That's okay. That's not the point. But anyway. So when I'm watching the guys that I think can have success in our offenses, this is just at the high school level. There's a couple of words I always say, like I'll say, hey, be patient or feel, or, when you're smooth to the hole, you want to be here. Just feel for this. Like those things that are intentional, it doesn't sometimes matter how clean it is up front. It's if you're on the right track and you understand play integrity. I mean, short of getting penetration, it's hard to stop. Like,
yeah, if you trust,
we weren't getting blown off the ball against North. Now they were getting into us, right? But they were finishing runs.
Yeah,
I felt like we were in position. They're just patient.
Yeah,
and because they were patient, like they just stayed in and.
I want to make sure I understand this in layman's terms. So basically what you're saying is unless you're getting like defensive line penetration on a run play where you're disrupting the timing and the integrity of the play. If a running back and offensive line
are on the same page,
can just run the play.
I think at worst, it's unless you're not getting whipped up front, it's hard not to get a minimum of 3 yards.
Yeah. So basically, if they just trust the way the play is drawn up.
You ever watch Navy?
The offensive line doesn't get dominated.
Yeah.
And the running back trusts where things are supposed to be.
And you can be going against better D-line.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to get in the way. You just can't get blown up.
Well, because most of the time, you're running 5-on-4, right? You have an advantage.
Yeah.
So you should be able to.
And somebody's going to have to come from the second level to fit.
Which takes a little bit of time.
So I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, I just watch how so many things that Michigan does, they were so well coached.
Mm-hmm.
It was I don't know, man. I felt like when I was watching that game as the analyst, I was floored at their efficiency. You could tell that that's a team that did a lot of the same things over and over and over again. When Auburn was doing what they did with Nick and Trey Mason and those guys, they didn't have elite level offensive linemen. They committed themselves to it.
Well, so here's what I would say there is I think you have to do a couple things really well on the offensive line. Either, if you've got the great 5-star offensive lineman, okay, cool, that helps a lot. But if you have to be really good at developing and coaching offensive linemen to your particular style. That's the thing that Auburn got right.
And Michigan.
And Michigan and Oregon back in the day too, right? If this was a really great, like the NFL is a great example of the late 90s Broncos teams, right? Those were little bitty linemen, but they were incredible at that zone scheme that they were running, right? Nebraska back in the day was really good at that too. It wasn't all the 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" offensive linemen. You had some smaller guys that could move and get to where they needed to go. Perfect for the style that Nebraska was running at the time. You don't have to go get the 5 stars, but if you don't, you better have an incredible idea of what you need from those guys and be able to recruit body types that you can get to that
Now,
point.
I'm probably more on that page than I am. You need.
Yeah, no,
you're gonna have to go because
you don't have to go get 5 stars, but then you better be really good at that.
Because I'm just thinking, like, pick an offense that you'd like to be of these national championship. And I'm not even talking about winning a national title. I'm just talking about
just making the playoff.
Yeah, being
top
in
12
position
team in
to
the
be
country.
in top 12.
Top 12 team in the country.
How dynamic do I have to be?
I think of the teams that we're looking at, LSU in 19's fun, but that's an outlier,
What's
right?
wrong with being Penn State? You don't think I can win if I'm Penn State? They don't turn the ball over.
Not turning the ball over would go a long way with Nebraska fans.
What did he throw?
Place.
2 picks?
Something like that. Yeah, Aller last year. Yeah, he hasn't thrown a lot of picks. It was 19-2 or something. His ratio.
I can win a lot of games.
Yeah, I can live with that. If Rayola went 19-2 this year, we'd all lose our minds, like ratio wise.
Yeah, it'd be incredible.
We'd freak out, and rightfully so.
So what do I need the offense to look like? I don't know. I need it to complement how I want to play on defense.
Yeah,
that's what I need to do.
Especially if defense is your identity.
If I need to get to it's not like we paint this
It doesn't have to be dynamic. It does have to be effective.
Efficient.
Yes. Like those are different things. I would call, Ohio State's offense dynamic.
I'm pretty sure I would take Michigan's offense every day that ends in Y.
You think it's more portable?
Yes, I do.
No, fair.
I do.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to Michael Coyer from the Jet Foundation here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Coming down to Branch, catches at the 25, finds a seam at the 35, to the 45, up the middle to the 40. He won't be touched. Zachariah Branch, touchdown USC. Wow.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior Stage. We are joined now by Michael Coyer, Executive Director of the Jet Award Foundation. Also, did a little radio in his former life. What's up, Michael?
The whole music says I can email Andrew Rogers, so I'd like to drop an email to Andrew Rogers right now, and Damon Benning, which is good to know. Let's get that fixed. Get that updated there, Shane.
You still can email Andrew. He's still part of the company.
We're like, okay, what's going on in Omaha today, Andrew? I don't know what's happening. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Hey, how are we feeling? How are things, Mr. Jet? Like, we got a huge event coming. We kind of work in, I don't know if you call it tandem. I think I just do what you tell me. Like, how are we doing?
How are we feeling? Well, I'm currently sitting in the parking lot waiting to go in for my evaluation at Macavicka Physical Therapy for my my spine. But other than that, we're doing great.
Yeah.
So we got the event coming up on the 23rd. It's going to be right there where you guys are at Hurrdat Sports Bar. And you're going to be a part of it, which I'm very excited about for our roundtable with Brendan Stye and Amon Green's coming in town. And the doc, Rob Zadis, is a part of it as well. And we got a great auction with a bunch of auction items too. So it's awesome. You can go to the website, Jet Award. thejetaward.com, or you can always check out me on social media. I've been posting about it every day. So we're excited about it. I think it's going to be fun. Good way to kick off the college football season.
So, Michael, what's the agenda for the kickoff event? I know there's some auction items. What else are you going to make DB do while he's hosting that thing?
The first thing we're going to do is do the roundtable and just kind of look at a preview for the season, talk about the Huskers, look back a little bit and some of the glory days. Do that for probably 45 minutes or so, and then we'll jump into the auction where we have Grant Wistrom sent a signed jersey, which was awesome. Amon Green's donating a signed helmet. Eric Crouch donated a Heisman helmet. When they go to the Heisman, they each get a helmet, or they get several of them, and they can get guys to sign them. It's 15 former Heisman winners that are on the helmet. So he donated that. We got a bunch of great auction items for all kinds of things, from car washes to concerts. We got a bunch of stuff on there. So we're looking for people to get in there and start bidding on the auction. We'd appreciate that. You can find the link again on my social media accounts, and if you can just call me and I'll give you the link to it so we can get some people bidding on the auction items. So we got all that going. And then after, we'll just kind of sit around and chat, and just kind of hang out and talk to the former players and just, kind of mill around.
Hey, so like when you're watching this thing, and obviously we're on the committee, you're the ED, which, I mean, hey, that comes with a lot of responsibilities. Do you like the new special teams rules? Because I'm not going to lie, I kind of do.
Well, I love what the NFL is doing. I love that when I first saw it in the XFL a couple of years ago. I thought that was great. It limits that collision that you're having from full run down the field. It also gives a guy like you, when you're playing, you make one guy miss, you can go to the house in that new system. As for college, it's really made it hard in the punting game. I mean, teams have struggled the last 5 years with the punt game, just being able to decide, do I really want to risk it? When everything's kind of single block, there's a good chance that I'm going to probably have something bad happen opposed to something good happen. So you don't have a lot of teams even attempting to return punts. But the best teams in the country, especially if you look at the Big Ten, look how good Penn State was, how good Ohio State was. If you got a guy back there that can return a punt, give you 7 to 10 yards average, which is the best in college football right now, you know what that means. I know Dr. Tom Osborne told you about it. You're going to score a field goal, at least a field goal, the majority of the time when you do that. Better chance of getting a touchdown as well, of course, because of field position. But the kickoffs have started coming back. Last year was the first time in the last 4 years where we actually had more kickoff returns for touchdowns than the previous year. It just hadn't been happening. It's been going the other direction. Last year really turned, and it turned late, man. I think part of it is, DB, you always talked about, how good are you when you're 100%? Well, how good are you when you're 70%? Mm-hmm. Late in the season, guys are worn down. Maybe you haven't had any bye weeks. And you saw in the last 3 weeks of the season a bunch of kickoff returns for touchdowns. And I think part of that is injuries. You're pulling your guys off of special teams. They're starting instead. Guys are tired. So you start seeing it late. We love to see it, obviously, at the Jet Award Foundation. It's what we talk about. It's what we give the award for. But for the most part, I would love for college to go with the pros doing. I would take that in a heartbeat. I think it's great.
Hey, so Ravi and I had this conversation, and I try not to let my Jet Award, affinity or the fact that I played on so many special teams. But I said it's a lot easier to be good on special teams than it is to get elite quarterback play. Agree or disagree?
Yeah. Well, God, Iowa. Damon, do you know what Iowa did last year? Iowa did something that hadn't been done except one time in the history of college football. They averaged less than 250 yards on offense a game, yet won 10 games.
Yeah.
The previous high ever for a team in terms of wins was 4. UCF won 4 games having less than 250 yards a game in total offense. Why'd they do that? Special teams. They certainly didn't have great quarterback play. They had okay running back play. Their offensive line wasn't even what I was normally used to. But what did they do it with? They won special teams. Every single phase of special teams, they won it. And yeah, obviously you're not going to be able to find a 5-star or a 4-star quarterback. But if you have a guy, and Iowa has it obviously, and the special teams coordinator that keeps starters on the field, gets great returns, doesn't allow returns, and makes field goals, yeah, you're going to win 3 or 4 games every year because of that.
Michael, I'm always curious, heading into the season like this. I know you got Zachariah Branch, your winner from USC, returning. Who are some other candidates
that list is out? I'm glad you asked.
That you're keeping an eye on for the Jet Award this year?
I put out the watch list. And the way I normally do it is, of course, I look back at the guys we had as our finalists last year. The weird thing about our finalists last year, those guys left the schools they were at. The Harrison kid was at Marshall, left and went to Notre Dame. One of our semifinalists was at Houston, left and went to Texas. Golden kid. So you look at those who were the finalists, and then you try to look for guys who had really good years last year as freshmen, and you kind of put them in there. And then I was asking around, just saying, hey, you guys got any freshmen? And there was really 3 people, and I was one of them, that thought that Ja'Cory Barney, based off what we saw in the spring game, and I know it's early in the spring game to see somebody do something, based on his return there, I thought putting him on the watch list made sense, because I think how many times have we looked at slot receivers, smaller guys, coming to Nebraska, and we go, okay, that's the guy. That's Jamal Turner. That's the guy who's going to be it. I think this is finally the guy. This is the guy who's going to explode as a freshman. He's going to do it on special teams. He's going to do it whether they line him up outside or inside, whether it's running into rounds, whatever. I think he's going to have a huge year. He's the kind of freshman, like Zachariah Branch, who could make waves in the Jet Award for 2025.
Yeah, you better talk to Coach Brown. I'm not sure he's going to win that job, but I'm with you on. Well, I think coaches. I don't know. I'm not. I would tell you if I did. I would text you and be like, "Hey, man, don't put that guy on the list." But I just think coaches play the guys they trust back there, and so you may see a guy like IGC or somebody back there like that is a little more steady Eddie. But I'm with you, because the only thing that's been worse for a sport than shifts in baseball is rugby style punting in football. So I'm like, please bring the dynamic returner back, because everybody talks about place kicking and field goal kicking. I get it. I want to be able to return punts, because it's a killer. Like a 10-yard return is like, like people stand up and they go crazy over a 10-yard return, man. I just want to be able to get to the point where we do that.
But we talk so much about Nebraska's deficiencies in the last couple of years, and you know how much I feel about finishing drive rate, right? You're going to cross the opponent's 40-yard line. You need to get a touchdown if you can. You certainly got to get a field goal. If you average more than 4 points in that situation, you're in a pretty good situation for the overall league. How do you get there? You just mentioned 10-yard return. That's an extra first down. Now you only got to get 2 more first downs, and you're in finishing drive rate territory where you need to get points. So, yeah, kickoff is great. If you can get over to the 30-yard line, it's the same thing. That's an extra first down. But it's certainly the truth for the punt return. If you get a 10-yard return, more than likely you're going to score some points. Unless you're Iowa's offense, you're going to score some points.
So are we in agreement? Because you and I have never talked about what fits our eye, but typically we agree closer to voting time. Are you more enamored with the kickoff guys or punt guys? Because one, in my opinion, one is clearly tougher than the other, but I can't even get returners to agree.
Yeah, I want to see both. I think every year we picked a guy who did both of them. Maybe he leans more of a kickoff returner and only had like a handful of punt returns, or the opposite way. But for me, I want to see guys that do both, because Johnny did both. I want them to be comparable to what Johnny did. Yeah. And so, yes, I'm for that. But definitely, without a doubt, the most impactful guy is that punt returner, because of what he can do to change and flip the field position, what he can do in terms of making the correct decision when the ball is coming in and he's got his feet on the 8. Like, does he try to catch it and make something happen? Does he let it go? Does he see the right spin? That guy has so much impact on winning and losing, and we don't talk a lot about him. So I would probably lean towards the punt return guy if that was solely what he did. But for me, I want to see him do both. I want to have a guy like Zachariah Branch last year, had a kickoff return for a touchdown, had a punt return for a touchdown. It was close on both of them 2 other times. So that's what I would rather have. But certainly what you guys do, standing back there with your head in the air while 8, 9, 10 guys are coming down to try to kill you, I certainly wouldn't want to be a punt returner. I admire those guys.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'd ask Jalen Lloyd, Jalen, you want to return punts? No. You want to do kickoff returns? Sure. Caleb, do you like kickoff returns? No. You like punts? Yeah. Like, it's hard to get those guys.
That might just be a family issue with the Bennings.
Your son, I've seen him play, obviously not as much as you, but a lot. Nobody I watched in high school football had a better judge of what the ball was in the air and how many times did he take the ball off a hop.
Yeah.
Ball was bouncing. He knew how to correct. Sometimes he just went down, protected it. But to be able to judge where that ball is going to roll, where it's going to land, that's a center fielder ability. You have that center fielder ability back there. Again, you're going to save your team the lost net punt yardage, which is so critical. Nebraska lost multiple games last year because they lost the net punting battle.
Yes.
You can't lose that.
Michael, I gotta, before we let you go here, I gotta toss in one more thing. I am once again asking you, and I know you've tried, to find Peter Warwick and bring him to Omaha. I know you've tried.
He might be that legacy guy.
I know you've tried. I need you to keep trying. Never give up on me, Michael.
I am trying. Here's the guy that we have on the hook right now that is really close is going to make Damon Benning as happy as anybody you've ever seen. You think you've seen a joyous Damon Benning. If we get the guy that we have on the hook that is tentative, that we're just trying to work out some details, if we get him, DB's going to go nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Would it be as happy as Peter Warwick would make me?
I think comparable, although – is Florida State your favorite college football team?
Yes.
I mean, Nebraska is, but I love Florida State.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this guy played for one of Damon's favorite college football teams. That's a number of teams, but one of his favorite college football teams.
See, here we go.
So,
is it USC?
Certainly.
Here we go.
It could be USC. I don't know. It could be the fight. It could be fight on. Certainly, it could be. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what it was.
You getting Reggie Bush up in here?
See, I can't give that kind of information out.
All right.
I can't give that kind of information.
I'm not trying to ruin it for you. I'm just saying, I know you've tried. I need you to keep trying on my guy, Peter Warwick. That's all I'm asking.
I want Peter Warwick badly. I want Santana Moss, another guy that I have on my list that I would love to get as well. There's a lot of guys over the history that have been pretty good returners that we'd love to get here.
All right. I'll start spamming Peter Warwick on the internet, too, see if we can make something happen. Michael.
I'm doing that. Hit him up on Instagram all the time.
We appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks,
guys.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln for this third hour. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. DB.
Yo.
That was interesting stuff there with Michael.
Yeah, listen.
That should be a fun night.
Yeah, it'll be pretty cool, and it's here, right? It's like home.
Yeah, it's true. We spent a lot of time here.
Yeah, and most of the cool events that I go to are here. Graduation.
I would say like Caleb's graduation.
Yeah, I mean just in general.
Make sure you get to the jetaward.com if you want to.
Jetaward.com. Yep, our watch list is out. I gravitate towards punt returners.
I think it's harder.
I could return kicks in my sleep, but kick returners will tell you. I don't get why they tell you this, but it's like, guys get a running start. It's a beeline, this, that, and the other. I'm like, man, they can kick it further.
You got more time.
Hair is long. Like, come on, man.
When's the last time you saw a kickoff where the guy caught it and the tacklers were on top of him when he caught it?
Rarely.
Only if it's a pooch.
But so I wonder what the NFL will do.
Yeah, you might start to see some of that.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
there's going to be new strategies based on the new
and
rules.
so far, the only real penalties I've seen have been on the backside.
Yeah.
Like on the back sides of those returns. But I kind of like the format. One thing I hate.
Yeah.
I can't. Again, people cry about the shift in baseball, and there's a reason they changed that. But man, rugby punting sucks.
Yeah.
God, I hate it.
Well, I've always thought punt returning was harder. I've called you people, the people that like to do
I don't
returns,
think there's any question.
Full on psychopaths for enjoying it.
Yeah.
It is crazy people behavior. I can't.
Do you know how hard it is to block bullets and gunners on the punt team?
Yeah, it's basically impossible.
Do you see what NFL teams do now with putting those guys in motion? Like the more advanced you are in your punt, you double those guys.
Yeah.
Now you don't do it in high school because we would fake every day that ends in Y, right? So you can't double gunners in the high school level. But I told our guys, listen, you want 4 tackles a game? Let's say if we punt 4 times, go be a gunner.
Yeah.
Get in the stat sheet.
Because 4 free tackles a game.
It's just, and those guys are making beelines for punt returners.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
You have to be out of your mind to decide you want to do that for fun.
Yeah. We got so few balls kicked in the air.
Well, yeah, because Caleb took one to the house in the first game of the season.
That's not changing.
Yeah.
And we made those guys kick it again.
Yeah,
they kicked it out of bounds.
I know.
Yeah, Coach of mine looked at me, that's crazy. I was like, hey, man.
I remember.
Hey, they kicked it out of bounds. They're kicking it again.
Caleb took one to the house first game of the season. Nobody kicked it to him anymore.
Yeah, Cotton won't.
He's not going to mess around either.
Nah, he's got some help, too.
He's
so
pretty fast.
I just think, the punt return thing, I've said this to you, real time. Everybody talks about all the things that Nebraska needs to do better on their special teams. If I could fix one thing, I'm telling you, I think
it's special teams?
I think it would be of the special teams particular, I'd go with punt return.
Michael did bring up a really good point about.
Are you place kicking or punting?
I'm going to take the points.
Some people like the punter too.
Yeah, I get the impact of a punter.
Is there a wrong answer? I feel like punt return we have the least amount of answers.
Yeah, but I don't know that it's a wrong answer because it's basically the same argument as the punter, right? Of hey, you can change field position,
and I just think
there's higher
people
upside.
Concede it too much.
Yes, it's a
just get the ball back for offense, play it safe.
Market inefficiency, right?
Like
you can
you
can make hay there where nobody else is trying to. I'm just gonna take the points.
You want the place?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to like Coach Rule was saying. If I'm inside the 25, I want to.
You from those clips.
Yeah.
You can see how he wants to play offense.
Yeah. Like if I get to the 25, I want to know that's points.
Yeah, that's points.
If I get to the 30, I want to feel pretty good about it, right? Outside of that, I can kind of live with coin flips outside the 30. But if I get to the 25, 30 yard line, I better score.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to take the place kicking, but I do, and I think it is stylistically dependent, right? Like if you're going to play like Iowa, the punter becomes dramatically more important, right? And they're like, hey, yeah, no team in the country is going to go 85, 90 yards on us consistently. So we're going to make them do that every drive.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's incredibly valuable if you're Iowa, right? A punt return team or a punt returner on a team that maybe struggles to get 4, 5, 6 first downs on a drive, a punt returner becomes really valuable. I mean, that's the one thing people didn't really talk about with.
I mean, how many kicks does Rutgers block a year? 4?
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to blocking kicks yet.
Well, that's part of it, but the other way though,
Yeah.
right? Like
those are probably the biggest effect for the least amount of times you do it, right? You block like 2 or 3 kicks in a year. People are always thinking about that,
Yeah.
right? They go max.
I remember Nebraska blocked 2 punts in a game and lost. Now they got one blocked.
Yeah.
But I'm like, statistically, that doesn't happen very
almost
often.
ever, right? And you can talk about, you want to go back to like a Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. You want to go back to Bobby Bowden in his early days at Florida State.
Kyle Whittingham
at
guys.
Utah. Bill
Gianna.
Snyder at Kansas State.
Yeah.
They turned around bad programs on special teams, but specifically getting after kicks. Like, so there's a moment.
And I know Nebraska, like it's a coach rule thing, right? He
Yeah.
wants to block kicks.
Well, there's a kind of a demoralizing factor there about it, right?
100%.
And so that's what I mean. That's what I mean when I say for the amount of times you do it, it has the most lasting impact. Because like I said, you block 2-3 kicks a year. Because that's usually all you're talking about, right? You're not blocking a kick every game or even every other game.
Unless you're DeMario Williams or Baron Miles.
Yeah, unless you're some kind of a freak show, right?
Yeah, Demo was sick.
But
no, you're exactly right.
Unless you are like, if you're blocking like a kick every 3 or 4
How many
games,
did Farley get?
Fudge. Yeah, probably a couple. He got a couple.
I mean, we went after those things like crazy.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I know. I'm with you.
Like what? Like what's?
Because I don't know. You gave me the impression people don't like to coach special teams a couple months ago.
I don't think they do.
Stop.
But no, what I'm not saying they shouldn't. Because I agree.
I think they do.
I think some people. I don't think they overlook it. Like I don't think they overlook it. I think they do. Like, you ever met somebody that thinks like, oh no, I work hard at that, and then you like see what they actually do, and you go, oh no, you don't.
Yes.
We used to do this. So this is when guys that used to coach in basketball all the time. They're like, Coach, I'm in the gym every day, and then I see them in the gym, and they're like in flip flops, getting lazy shots up and taking like half quarters and messing around with their friends in their pajamas.
Well, who had the great story? It was Anthony Edwards, right? When he worked out for Golden State.
Yeah, where they're like, they're like, yeah, you're not working hard enough.
Yeah, and he's like,
right?
Wait, what?
Or you got all the stories from the 2008 Olympic team where they see how Kobe works and they're like, oh God, like we're not doing that.
Mm.
But I would literally have guys tell me all the time, Coach, I'm in the gym like 2-3 hours a day. They're in there in like socks, like they're not even wearing basketball shoes, and they think they're getting work.
That seems a little extreme.
No, I literally I swear it was socks and like the slides. They're in their pajama pants in socks and slides, thinking they're getting work in.
It's ridiculous.
Like not breaking a sweat. Half the time they don't take their backpack off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, you are in the gym. You're correct. You weren't lying to me. You are not getting work in. Like, well, I mean, what do you mean, Coach? I mean, it's better than nothing. It's more than this guy's doing. And this guy, the other guy they're comparing themselves to, is this like 23-year-old kid we had as a transfer that would come in for a half hour a day, go just bananas for half an hour, like would go hard, game speed shots, half hour, boom, he's done. That guy was getting work in.
Yeah.
And these other kids that were like, oh man, I'm in the gym 2-3 hours a day. It's like, no, you're not.
I don't know, man.
That's what I think specialty. So like to my point.
What was the biggest Denny Downer of that whole open practice? It was special teams, right?
I don't. Why do you say that?
Of the open practice that we went to?
Yeah.
You don't think that people were like, oh my gosh, what's with the punting? Oh my God. Like, you didn't get that vibe?
I'll be honest, I wasn't watching a ton of the punting.
Oh, shit.
I was watching quarterbacks and I was watching line.
So what'd you do during specialties?
I was watching the kicks, the field goal kickers, the place kickers. I told you I'm about the points. Give me the points.
I hear you.
I was watching the field goal kickers.
Okay.
But they were pretty good. They made a bunch.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I listen,
yeah, you only have so much
Right,
bandwidth,
yeah.
right?
I do. Like, so I don't think I told this on air. It kind of it took me a minute to kind of like calibrate, right? Because I don't know that I haven't watched a college football practice before, right? Certainly not one of this style. And it took me a minute. Like I had to calibrate it back to like, okay, when I was coaching basketball and we had, you have some of those gyms, you have like 10 hoops, right? So you've got guys, especially if you're doing like we would have early in the season, we would have joint JV varsity practices. And so you got like 40 guys in the gym at 10 different hoops. And so like if you're not like dialed in, you don't see anything, right? So it took me a couple minutes to be like, okay, this is just like basketball practice. I got to decide what I'm watching and then just tune everything else out. Otherwise, you will get nothing from this experience at all.
Yeah.
So I had to, I was pretty tunnel visioned on the stuff I was watching.
So can I go back to something, though, about the style of offense?
Yeah, absolutely.
You just want to be efficient with it, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you can win doing anything, like legitimately anything. You pick an offensive style, and if you are efficient at it, you can win, as long as it is complementary to the rest of the way you play football. I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, like you could tell me I was on this big kick when Georgia Tech was running the triple option stuff.
Yeah, you were a lot of people love Paul Johnson.
And people are like, oh, you can't win big that way. And they went to an Orange Bowl and like beat the heads in of some SEC team. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Tennessee or somebody. But they went to an Orange Bowl and they dominated an SEC team. And they won like 10 or 11 games that season, including the bowl game. And I'm like, okay, but Georgia Tech doesn't recruit well. It's an incredibly hard place to get players because of the academic standards. And they haven't even necessarily recruited that well to this style yet. And you're able to go out and win a bunch of games. Now, I know the entire Paul Johnson tenure ended badly at Georgia Tech, but like I believe anything can work if you operate it efficiently at a high level and it complements your defense. Like I fully believe that. You can't tell. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, you can't win with an air raid. It's like, yeah, you can if you do it right. It's like those people that said you couldn't win with certain styles of basketball. Like, oh, you can't win in the NBA if you're a jump shooting team or whatever. If you like, no, everything works if you're efficient at it. Everything.
I just think I'm just looking at long-term sustainability, and I think
so. That's a different question.
And I'm assuming that a staff that's shown a propensity to be able to recruit at a fairly decent level, that can develop at a fairly decent level, and I'm sure it's varying degrees in which people want to debate it.
I mean, I don't think you can debate it at Baylor or Temple for that matter.
So you know what I care about the most is like stacking wins, because I think you're going to be good at that part anyway.
About the recruiting and development?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
I've said this before. Like 8 wins, they turn into monsters.
Recruiting, yeah, I agree. If they have any proof of concept to point to, it's gonna get a little nutty around here. And I fully believe that. I also think, we were talking about kind of these close losses and how it kind of gets in people's brains a little bit with Sam. And
I do think we speak it into existence.
I mean, so I think both things can kind of be true. Like as a fan base, do we talk about it
What
too
was
much?
the clip floating around for the last 2 days? It's Coach Rule talking to the guys about why they lose close games.
Yeah. But that it's also,
which by the way lacks context, but that's neither here nor there.
Who needs context?
Apparently,
it's not important. What does context get you?
It's not as sexy, I guess.
But like, I do think we speak it into an existence to a certain extent. I also think it's probably something that it affects some players in their like mentally. Like I would be shocked if it's not something that some of those guys think about. But going back to proof of concept, if you're able to get one, remember all the way back last year, almost exactly a year ago. Didn't Coach Rule say something to the fact of like, I kind of hope they take the first kickoff back for a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. So they had to figure out how to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he knows that they have to do it once so that they can point to it and be like, hey, look, something bad happened. You're still here.
Mm-hmm.
Like something bad happened. We still won. We got behind the 8, but we got down 10 points and came back. Like he was talking about this with the quarterbacks the other day, where he goes, hey, the difference between the great guys, the great quarterbacks, and the average quarterbacks Okay, what does it look like when things start to go wrong?
Yeah.
If you're even decent, you should be able to function when things are going right in anything, right? Not just quarterbacks or football or whatever, right? If you're just not terrible at whatever it is you're doing, if things are going right, it's pretty easy to function. What does it look like when things start to go sideways on you? That's the thing Nebraska hasn't been able to navigate in a decade.
Which is funny because it's kind of what I was listening to Ryan Day talk about with Julian saying is they said, well, he certainly doesn't want his hand held. Like that was what he said. It's what he said.
Yeah.
He's a guy that is not wanting to take it slow. And I just wondered like what that would look like. But I do know why you would be drawn to it. Because
as a coach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that would come across as somebody that is like,
well, it's like the one thing you're drawn to the most.
Pretty much.
Is guys that don't need their hand held.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like if I give you,
and this is coming from somebody that likes to teach.
Yeah.
But I just need to know
teaching and holding hands is different.
It's like I love the development part of getting people and players better, whether it's mentally or physically, whatever. Like I enjoy seeing people flourish. It's that okay, now that we've invested this time, I'm just telling you to be highly successful, you can't need people to talk to you all the time.
Yeah.
You can't need people to validate you all the time. So you just have to do the right thing, even if nobody else is.
At some point, the teaching stops, right? Like there's still the coaching at that point.
What do we talk about yesterday with Prince Will?
The prize process.
What we talk about with quarterback development, it's you have to fall in love with the process, right? Like
you have to be a little bit of a weirdo.
How many of us enjoy doing the same thing every day at a competitive maximum level?
Not a ton.
There you go.
Not a ton.
And it's an even thinner divide amongst like-minded people that are separators. So it doesn't sounds kind of like an oxymoron out loud. But the more people that you have that are competing at something, the finer the sharper the cutoff is for those that are willing versus those that aren't.
Ooh, okay.
It declares very, very early.
Okay.
It's easy to see. Like, so even amongst guys that are competing every day, you can
tell
see,
who's about that life.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
It's very apparent.
Yeah.
Even though to begin with, you have more people that should possess that quality.
Well, so here's the thing I think is a misnomer, is we assume talented people have that quality in greater measure than
I would be in complete agreement with that.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why we get mad at some of those people, because we think they're wasting.
What do you do? Yeah. What are you doing with those? That like, do you know what I would do with that?
We think they owe it to us.
Yeah.
To
show
maximize
resolve because we have resolve because we're not as talented.
Yeah, because we have resolve with our lack of talent.
That is so funny because it's not even true, to be honest.
A, they don't owe you anything. And B, having talent in no way predicts the mental side of it.
And typically the more talented you are,
the less resolved
you need.
Well, and the less resolved you've had to be to get to the point where you are.
Yeah, well, it's
right. It's the thing we talk about with, guys that are like, well, hey, I've been pretty successful just to get here. Why are you coming in and asking me to change all this? It's like, well, because if you want to continue to be successful, like talent's there's not very many guys that just on pure talent can end up being
okay.
Do you
think that's something to Nebraska's recruiting philosophy on how they like to develop, like what they're looking for in a starting point?
In terms of
the people that they want to recruit.
100%. I think
you're not recruiting less talented guys intentionally, though.
No, I don't think they view it as Coach Rule talked about this. He doesn't view it as like diamonds in the rough or less talented guys or whatever. He sees, okay, they've got the best physical database in the world, they think, right? And I don't have any reason to disagree with them. So they've got all these data points, right? Where it's like, okay, if this guy can hit these, let's just call it 10 data points.
Certain benchmarks, we got the rest.
Yes. If Because I bet there's a bunch of guys that hit those data points. I bet it's the conversations that they have with people.
Can they do it every day?
Like mentally.
Yeah.
Because
that's for sure.
Right. So those are the guys that we see, whether it's like, was it like Quinn Clark, who had like D2 offers and nothing else?
Yeah.
And Nebraska's like, yeah, we're going to take that guy. Or whoever else. These guys that Nebraska comes in, don't have any offers, and Nebraska, like Jeremiah Charles or Bryce Turnell.
I remember when people were a little afraid or scared off by Quinn Clark because he intimated that he had to convince himself that he was worthy.
Mm-hmm. Everybody does, though.
And I'm like,
no, everybody does.
And so here's what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah.
He just said that part out loud.
Yes.
Most people don't.
Because
because I'm listening to that. Sometimes when people act like that, that may shake me. And I'm like, nah.
Everybody thinks that.
I've been around enough.
Everybody thinks that.
If you're around enough people.
And if you don't think that, you're probably not as good as you think you are.
He's like, hey, man,
what did rules say at Big Ten Media Days to us? Like the 2 bears. What was the first bear?
Well, you got to kill, you belong,
you
can do this.
Yeah, you can do this.
I belong.
You think he would say that if that wasn't something that almost every player he had experienced?
Yeah.
Quinn Clark just said it out loud.
No.
The second bear was Rule, which was funny. But like the first bear was, hey, yeah, you can act. You're good enough for this.
Yeah.
You can do this. You belong here.
It's just sometimes it's interesting how I said it yesterday about a guy that I think can win a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, I can't be your biggest fan, but at some point you have to know that you belong here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he got it. He's extremely capable, but sometimes you kind of look around and you read the walls and there's a lot of heart. I'm like, hey man, you're here, aren't we?
What do you think the difference today is between Cam Lenhart and Prince Will?
Like in lay terms?
Yeah.
The ability to repeat the same thing every day.
Would you say Prince Will is more talented than Cam Lenhart physically?
Yeah, I would say if I had to pick an upside guy,
yeah,
or a guy that I would pull off the shelf first, yeah,
like a bus guy.
Yeah, I'd take Prince Will.
Yeah, Cam is ahead of him, I think, right now.
Yeah,
because he's an 8 every day. He's a 7 or an 8 every day.
You can hear it in Cam's delivery.
Yeah. Well, he looks like an adult. I don't know if that's part of my he looks like
but he knew it though. He wanted to be what I call the 2-way guy. You call him an every down guy.
Yeah, the 3 down guy, whatever. Yeah,
he doesn't want to be the situational guy.
Nobody's taking him off the field.
That's the way he trained.
He doesn't want anyone to take him off the field.
Yeah. What? Even MJ Sherman.
Yeah.
You can only tell him about his fitness for so long
before he's like, all right, we got this.
Yeah, and then you look around at the jack room and it's like
all of a sudden,
yeah, we got some guys in here, man. I gotta
get going.
Go listen to MJ Sherman talk.
Yeah,
he's a pretty good poster child for emotional and physical development.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff there. We will be back. We're going to talk a little Nebraska Alumni Association. They're taking a trip out to USC, and you can join them coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill on the Pillar Exterior Stage. We are joined now by Nicole Sweigard. She's the Associate Executive Director of Alumni Engagement for the Nebraska Alumni Association. Nicole, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Good morning.
So, Nicole, I know that you guys are planning a big trip as part of the upcoming football season, heading out to USC. What can you tell me about that?
Well, first of all, we're really excited about football season in general, so that's right around the corner. But November is going to come pretty quick, too. So we have been planning and are very excited to head to USC. So what we decided to offer is, well, it's the official game day travel package. And for our travelers, we've got a couple different options. So they can choose to select a 2-day package or a 3-day package. This starts as early as November 14th. So the game is on the 16th, and we're going to stay downtown in LA at the Intercontinental, which I hear is just beautiful. So we're excited about that. Then for our travelers on that Friday, we're going to have a welcome event for the group. And on Saturday, on game day, we will have the official pregame tailgate just outside the Coliseum. So we'll bus our travelers over there. But this is called the Husker Huddle. And it's, like I said, it's included in the package, but it's also open to all fans. So if anyone is interested in learning more about how to travel with the Nebraska Alumni Association or how to sign up for the Husker Huddle, they can sure contact me here at the Nebraska Alumni Association, or you can go to our website. So that's huskerfantravel.com. So lots of things coming up. We're really excited about it. I think that we've had a huge response already to, especially the Husker Huddle. So we anticipate we will have literally hundreds of Husker fans right outside the Coliseum.
So you had my attention at full buffet at a very affordable price. I could take or leave the drink tickets, but the full buffet. So like you've planned to just make this as big, like this is an all day, all inclusive kind of thing, right? I think that's kind of an important distinction because that's pretty cool.
It is, and our goal is just to really have all the Husker fans in one area before going into the game. And so we are setting up 3 hours before kickoff. Like I said, it's right outside the Coliseum. It's called the Expo Park West. And you do have to, obviously there is a price to get into the event, but it is only $99 per person, and that's the full buffet. That's an open bar. We're hoping to have campus dignitaries, the Spirit Squad. So it should be a lot of fun.
We're talking with Nicole Sweigard of the Nebraska Alumni Association. I think the thing that I kind of like about this, Nicole, is, I've thought about like, let's travel for games or whatever, especially as a fan. And sometimes I get a little, I'm an anxious person to start with, where, I'm like, okay, am I going to have to like meet up with people? And am I going to have to arrange for all my friends? This sort of arrangement takes care of all that. There's going to be other Husker fans there. You're not going to be in LA all by yourself wearing your big red and just be surrounded by a bunch of Trojan fans. Like, you got us covered here.
Absolutely. We did this last year. Well, actually we do it every year, but we went to Colorado last year and we traveled. I traveled for work, but we had some friends that were on the trip and they said, why would we ever do anything different? You made it so easy for us. And so it really is. It's easy. You get there. So this is a land only trip. So you get there and then we take care of everything from there. And I think it's especially important in LA because I think that just transportation and getting to the Coliseum, that's a little tricky. That, Ubers are not always going to be available and it's hard to get close to the Coliseum. So we're hoping that people take advantage of this and travel with other Husker fans. There's great beauty in that. And it's just so much fun.
Nicole, my sister used to live in LA. I can vouch for the fact that transportation in LA is a nightmare. So having all of that taken care of is a perfect opportunity. Nicole, where can people find more information or get tickets if they're looking for them?
Oh, sure. Like I said, visit our website. So that's the Nebraska Alumni Association website. So, but if you go specifically to huskerfantravel.com, you'll see both events. You'll see, if you are interested in the travel package, that's on there. Or if you just want to sign up and you want to go to the Husker Huddle, that's on there as well. So lots of different options. And actually across the board, we've got tons of things going on this fall as we're kicking off another football season.
Yeah, I also see on there, we may have to talk to you in the spring when we get closer, because I may need to go to the Kentucky Derby with you guys. That actually seems right up my alley.
He's a bucket list guy.
It is. That's a big one for me.
I love it.
Nicole, thank you so much for your time and for putting this all together. What a great opportunity for Husker fans. And I'm sure we will catch up with you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on today. Have a great day.
Appreciate it.
You too. That's Nicole Sweigard from the Nebraska Alumni Association. Make sure you get over to huskerfantravel.com if you're interested in any of those travel packages. I will say, I do, like, there is a little bit of hesitation. Like, if you haven't been somewhere to see a team before, there is like some, like, a little bit of a hesitancy if you just don't know what's going on, right? Yeah. Like you've got a lot of
you probably end up over in Watts, which is fine because it's just across the street. But let me know how that works out for you.
Is it a day game or a night game?
Just make sure you head towards the 2 big gates that open.
Do you think telling people I know Clinton Childs helps them out in Watts, or is that just a North Omaha
a good
deal?
thing, but I don't know if that's portable. There's probably a lot of him out there. Go out on a limb.
Oh man. No, it'll that's an exciting game.
Although I think guys like Tukey Williams are still locked up, so you might be all right.
It's exciting.
You don't think Beck? I know Damon Benning.
No,
that help?
Well, no, that gets you killed. No, don't do that. That is going to be a fantastic. I mean, the Coliseum. I hope. Actually, I don't. I was going to say it's a pretty cool place when SC fans show up. 07 was cool.
Yeah, we don't need any of that.
But I always do hope that there's more Nebraska fans. But there's so many Californians for Nebraska.
I do love a Nebraska takeover.
No, I'm serious.
There's a ton in Arizona too. Arizona, Southern California.
So
there's
it's like, I mean, I could easily see 20,000.
Oh yeah.
Got
to make it happen.
They all just need to do the alumni thing.
Let's go. Send them through. Let's go.
How much if I didn't have to work?
So $99 for full buffet and an open bar.
Yeah, although in public I wouldn't eat a ton.
Yeah,
I would need to be able to go back home.
Yeah,
but
you can get after that open bar though a little bit.
Oh man, come on. I'm not for as big a germaphobe as I am. I'll
smash a buffet.
I'll bash a good buffet.
Buffets don't bother me from a germ standpoint.
I'm cool.
It's flickering.
I'm not a huge.
Sometimes I know it's
anyway,
not always like Again, there's a couple of people I follow on TikTok that do like buffet reviews.
Yeah.
I'm like, shoot, man, I wish I had time to travel.
I love a good buffet.
There was one in Indiana that we didn't get to.
Ooh, you should have told me. Although at the time I probably was not.
It wasn't one of the ones that I listed off because I wanted to stay close because I knew you were suspect. But
I was feeling great.
You would.
I follow a guy that had the top 38 eating places in Indianapolis.
Yeah, you told me that.
Yeah,
well,
he's still good.
I'll have to make a return.
I think
trip when I don't have to
I think he's called Starts with a Question.
Yeah. What's up, Shane?
You would travel just for buffets?
Dude, I've traveled pretty far to eat good food.
Yeah, I could see that. Like Natasha and I have talked about planning a trip around like trying to go to a Michelin star place because like that's kind of a bucket list thing. It's like going to a place with a star.
I wouldn't always enjoy like those little. I'm not going for like small itty bitty cute portions like a lot of you would get on some of them.
Yeah.
I like bang for my buck.
Yeah,
kind of guy.
It's like it's for me. It's it's like the experience though. Like it's.
Yeah, that's not for me. I want to eat what I like.
And what would the experience be? Just having it brought out like piece by piece? Or are you talking
I mean
like
that's a tasting menu. You can get that here, but like you're having like Michelin stars are like the best food in the world, right? Or at least it's recognized. Like I would just want to experience that. I haven't eaten at a Michelin star restaurant. So like that's a, it's a kind of a unique special experience.
My Nebraska itchy sea bass is pretty good. I'm cool.
I don't even recognize what that means.
A couple of great sushi places have. It's in a type of sea bass, and it is
great weirdly good sushi here in Omaha, Nebraska. Got a couple places that I like a lot.
One's not far from me.
Yeah, a couple of them owned by the same guy. Henry Palattella coming up next to talk Major League Baseball from Forbes here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back.
Miss.
We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Hands over the head and the 0-2. Swing and a miss. A changeup that time. And 11 strikeouts in 7 innings for Brandon Pfaadt.
And he cranks it deep to left center field. Goodbye. Long gone at Tropicana. Si, senor. A 3-run shot.
Wrapping up the show here on a Tuesday on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Henry Palattella. He covers baseball for Forbes and MLB.com. Henry, how are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
We're hanging in there. I'm a fan of a team that is in first place in the NL West, and my partner over here is a fan of the Boston Red Sox. So the tenor and the tone of the conversations may be a little bit different here, Henry.
Yeah, different ends of the spectrum, but that's what makes baseball great.
It is, and it's fantastic. And I want to start with probably the greatest enigma wrapped in a riddle. If I said, Henry, how are the Milwaukee Brewers doing it? Like, how long would it take you to try to explain it to me and make it make sense?
Yeah, I don't even know if anyone has the vocabulary for that. You know, they lose one of the best managers in baseball. They have they lose Christian Yelich at this point this year, but yet it's kind of they have built a team in the image which they want to. You know, they've been successful for so long because they've sought out players that fit the kind of way they want to play and the way kind of the culture of the team. And I think that's shown as they've lost Craig Counsell and lost some guys to free agency or trades, but still kind of been able to build a successful team. I think the Josh Hader trade 2 years ago was kind of the microcosm of that. They lost the clubhouse, it turned, and they realized that they needed to go about doing things a different way. And they've done it. They've been quick to promote people. They've been quick to promote the Jackson Churios, the Sal Freelicks, the Joey Ortizes of the world. And just, no one expects them to have Colin Ray be their number 2 pitcher with a 3.38 ERA. Or
how about Junis?
Yeah, it is incredible what they're able to do and what they've done. And they're a lot of fun to watch too. Like, you can just tell they play and enjoy not only an aesthetically pleasing way of baseball, but that they all enjoy being around each other and enjoy playing with each other, which is awesome to watch.
Henry, on a scale of 1 to 10, how mad should I be about Chris Sale being good again?
Yeah, that's the thing for me is no one expected this. Like, I feel like that's the chance you take. Now, the return obviously hasn't looked great because Vaughn Grissom, I don't even know if he's been in MLB this year. I know he's been hurt, which just kind of shows if he has been, he's been ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
But with Sale, I feel like you kind of reached a point where if he was going to do it, he was probably going to do it somewhere else. Like, I feel like Boston was fed up with him. He was probably a little fed up with Boston. I feel like he went to a new place and has been able to stay healthy, but who knows if that'll be the case or not. But I was watching the Braves game last night, and just the sharpness of his pitches, the way he dominated on the mound, like it looked, like when he first got to Boston, or even when he was with Chicago. And it's just, I think his tenure in Boston is always going to be disappointing because of the way it ended. But it just seems like it's one of those things that you just kind of throw your hands up, and if you said, if he does it somewhere else, he does it somewhere else, and he's doing that.
Now they're doing it in different ways, and I get it. The Diamondbacks have more recent clutch pedigree, obviously playing in a World Series, and San Diego is kind of the perennial team that always disappoints. But they're both dangerous for different reasons, right? I get it. Arizona doesn't have the depth, but San Diego doesn't have the consistency. If I'm checking the rearview mirror and I'm a Dodgers fan, who concerns you more?
I would say the Diamondbacks, just because of the way they played them last year in the postseason. I think confidence is so key when it comes to this, and both of these teams have had success against LA in the playoffs. But it just seems like the Diamondbacks, they're kind of the same thing as the Brewers, that Christian Walker's out, now Gabby Moreno's out. They were without Merrill Kelly all year. Gallen was hurt.
Carroll hasn't been great.
Yeah, Carroll hasn't been great. Montgomery's his ERA's above 6. Paul Sewald hasn't been great. He's not the closer anymore. But it's the same kind of thing where the amount of they built this team around a specific vibe, a specific style of play, a specific trait that they wanted, specific skill set, and it's all working out. And Ketel Marte proved last year that he's the type of guy that can put you on his back. I mean, he's doing the regular season now, but can do that in the postseason too. And even with Carroll not playing well, he's still an incredibly dangerous talent. Jake McCarthy had a 2-home run game a couple weeks ago. Jock Peterson's having his best career since he was an all-star. They don't have the depth, but the guys that they do have know their role and do it to a T. And Lovello seems to be pulling all the right levers, pushing all the right buttons. And the most important thing is that they have 3 at this point now with Ryan Nelson. I think and even with Merrill Kelly coming back, they have 3, if not 4, solid starters they can count on in the postseason. And that's the most important thing. And with LA, last year they ran out of arms, and they have Glass now this year, but I don't know if, all things being equal, if they have the depth to be able to make a run in the same way the Diamondbacks can do it potentially again.
We're talking with Henry Palattella from MLB.com. We're 6 weeks away from the end of the regular season, and you've got a bunch of races, both for divisions and wild card spots, that are really close. You got the AL East and AL West, both basically tied at the top there. Is there a particular race, either for a division or a wild card spot, that you find the most interesting at this point?
Yeah, I am all in on the AL East. I was super in on Baltimore at the beginning of the year, and they've really done everything right. But New York is getting carried by Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, and I think that they're starting to get some momentum. Jazz Chisholm has looked incredible for them since they got him at the trade deadline. But it's just going to be such an interesting race because they have two of the best records in the American League. Like, it's not a race, there's only a game between the Astros and the Mariners, but there are clear deficiencies on those teams. It's more a battle of attrition than a battle for pedigree, whereas this is really a battle for pedigree, and it's going to be whether or not the Yankees, who have two of the best talents in baseball, one of the best starting pitchers in baseball, will be able to get enough from their role players to get above Baltimore, or if Baltimore's cavalcade of young players will be able to hold the line and keep playing the way that they have. And, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was going to let you finish your thought. That's on me. I apologize.
And that's just the big, every division has some kind of close race, which is awesome, except for the NL East, where the Phillies are suddenly running away with it. But it's going to be such an interesting battle, and it's also they're going to be playing teams that are good. Boston is above 500. The Rays are hovering around 500. Toronto's 9 games under, but can be dangerous. They're going to be playing teams in their division that are good, and as opposed to in the AL West, teams are going to be playing the Angels and Athletics. You're going to have to earn that division title, and then whoever loses it is going to have to play in a wild card series where anything can happen. And so there's a chance that a team that could finish near or at 100 wins could end up going home in the first round of the playoffs, which is what makes, in my mind, MLB so awesome. But I can see how that can be something for, especially a fan base that loses, can be, a tough pill to swallow.
I picked them to win the AL West, so at the moment I'm relatively happy. I still don't know how they're doing it because I can't figure out who Luis Castillo is, and I get Rodriguez is back, but they still can't score. But the Mariners appear to kind of be hitting stride with a couple back-to-back outings from Castillo and Kirby. Who is Castillo relative to who the Mariners are?
I think he's kind of the epitome of that team. They call him the Rock. He is the guy they trust the most with the ball. He doesn't have Kirby and Gilbert have better ERAs, but I think just the experience he has, the trust he has, the rapport he has with Cal Raleigh. He's never going to throw a no-hitter, but I feel like he's one of the few guys you can count on to always go at least 6 innings and then potentially give up 3 or less, essentially locked in for a quality start every time he goes out. It's not always going to be the prettiest. He's probably going to have to work around some traffic. He might give up a couple home runs that go a long way, but he always seems to keep Seattle in it and always keeps them competitive. And that's kind of in my mind, the makeup of the team. They're not complete. They're not hitting. They seem to be very streaky. When one person goes, they go. Julio hasn't been the same player this year. But it seems like every game they're in, or they're giving their starter a chance, or their starters giving their offense a chance, which, you don't lose a 10-game lead in a division for no reason. But there's a reason they got that lead in the first place. They still are a dangerous team. It just really hasn't come together yet for them.
Henry, if I give you a handful of teams here in the NL wild card race, you've got Arizona and San Diego pretty safely ahead of the pack right now. Then you go Atlanta, New York, St. Louis, San Francisco, all within 2.5 games of each other. Who do you trust the most in that scenario?
Trusting the most is tough of those teams. I don't know if I trust any of them, but the one that I feel the most confidence in, I don't know if confidence is even the right word. I think the Giants have a chance to make a run. They have their whole problem this year has been that they haven't had enough pitching. So they've been trying to scrape it together with legitimately anyone in the Bay Area with a glove throwing and hitting for them. But now Blake Snell's back. He threw the no-hitter, went 6 no-hit innings yesterday. Matt Chapman's really started to pick it up. Tyler Fitzgerald picked it up. Elliot Ramos has been a savior for them. They have the team and the makeup to be a successful team, but their whole problem has just been they've always been kind of behind the 8 ball on the back foot trying to survive until next week. Whereas I feel like now it's turning, and it's instead of looking to next week, they feel like they can be entrenched in the moment and have that success. Now, they do play in the NL West, which, as we've talked about earlier, has a lot of successful teams. So it's going to be a matter of they're going to have to earn it too. Same thing with the Mets. You know, they're a game out. Of those 3 teams you mentioned, they're the only one with a positive run differential.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, what have they done lately to prove to us that they can be a team that you can trust? They are probably the most talented team of those teams that we've mentioned, but it just is, since they went up how many games in 2022 and blew the division, it just hasn't looked right in New York, and they've had a lot of success lately. They've, since the end of June, have looked like a different team than they were at the beginning of the year. But I don't know if I can trust them to make that leap. And when it comes to September and when the games really matter, if they're going to be able to get it done. So if it comes down to just thinking about the team with the most talent, it's the Mets. But the team that I feel like has the makeup to do it, I'd probably lean San Francisco, those 3 teams.
That's Henry Palattella from MLB.com and covers baseball for Forbes as well. Henry, we appreciate the time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Henry.
Yeah, of course. Anytime.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio tomorrow.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.